Beneath the shifting sands of deserts, deep within the tangled jungles, and carved into cliffs that have endured for millennia, lie structures that seem to defy everything we know about human capability. Enormous stones cut with surgical precision, blocks weighing hundreds of tons, stacked so seamlessly that even a blade of grass cannot slip between them. Across continents, from the temples of Peru to the monoliths of Palestine, these monuments whisper the same haunting question. How were they built, and by whom? Modern engineers, armed with machines of steel and algorithms of unimaginable complexity, still struggle to explain how ancient civilizations, armed only with primitive tools, or so we think, could achieve such feats. Did they possess knowledge we've lost to time? Techniques that have slipped through the cracks of history? Or are we missing a piece of the puzzle entirely? Tonight, we journey into the heart of these mysteries, into the stones, the ruins, and the echoes of forgotten builders. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the ancient structures humanity itself can't seem to recreate. High on the windswept Andean plateau of Bolivia lies a place that seems almost frozen in time. A scattering of colossal stone blocks, strewn across the earth as though abandoned in the middle of some forgotten construction. This is Punku, a site that has puzzled archaeologists, engineers, and travelers for centuries. At first glance, it appears like the remnants of a once great structure, toppled by the forces of nature. But as one steps closer, as the details begin to emerge, it becomes clear that Punku is no ordinary ruin. Here, massive blocks of red sandstone and gray andesite lie scattered across the plain, some weighing over 100 tons. They are carved with extraordinary precision, geometric edges, perfectly straight cuts, and intricate interlocking shapes that suggest not just skill, but a mastery of stonework that defies the expectations of its time. Some of these blocks are fashioned into the now famous H shapes, their sides symmetrical and their angles uncannily sharp, as though shaped not by hand tools but by advanced machinery. Mainstream archaeology places the construction of Punku around 500 AD, linking it to the Tiwanaku culture, a powerful pre-Columbian civilization that thrived in this region for centuries. The Tiwanaku are known for their remarkable achievements in agriculture, social organization, and stone construction, and Punku is often seen as a ceremonial or spiritual center. According to this view, the site's precision and scale, while extraordinary, can be explained by the dedication and ingenuity of a society determined to honor their gods and rulers through monumental architecture. Yet, even as this explanation offers context, questions remain. The quarry where many of the sandstone blocks originated lies more than 10 miles away. The smaller but harder andesite stones were brought from quarries nearly 50 miles distant, across uneven terrain and at altitudes of over 12,000 feet. How did a civilization without wheels, iron tools, or draft animals transport and position stones weighing tens of tons? How did they achieve joints so tight that even today, with modern measuring equipment, the level of precision seems astonishing? The engineering challenges alone invite speculation. Some scholars propose that the Tiwanaku used teams of workers, ropes, sledges, and earthen ramps to drag the stones into place. Others suggest the use of reed boats across nearby Lake Titicaca for part of the journey. These theories paint a picture of remarkable human determination, but they also leave gaps, particularly when confronted with the sheer scale and flawless symmetry of the blocks. Then there is the question of the tools. Experimental archaeology has shown that stone tools can carve softer sandstone, but shaping the andesite, a volcanic rock almost as hard as granite, presents a greater challenge. Could bronze chisels and repetitive labor explain the smooth, machine-like cuts? Or does Punku preserve evidence of techniques that have been forgotten? Some researchers propose the use of abrasive sand, pounding stones, and an immense investment of time. Others wonder if something more sophisticated might have been at play. This is where Punku moves from the realm of history into mystery. A number of fringe theories have emerged over the decades, suggesting that the Tiwanaku may have inherited techniques or knowledge from a much older civilization, one perhaps lost to time, or even to catastrophe. Some go further still, entertaining the possibility of extraterrestrial influence, pointing to the site's enigmatic precision as evidence of technologies beyond Earth. These ideas remain controversial, often dismissed by mainstream scholars. Yet they continue to capture the imagination of those who walk among the fallen stones, unable to reconcile what they see with what history tells them. And still, the puzzle deepens. Archaeological studies suggest that Punku may have once been part of a much larger ceremonial complex, connected to Tiwanaku's vast city center. Reconstructions envision towering gateways, massive terraces, and a plaza lined with finely cut stones. If true, then what survives today is only a shadow of the site's original grandeur. What would Punku have looked like in its prime, and why was it left in ruins?
High on the windswept Andean plateau of Bolivia lies a place that seems almost frozen in time, a scattering of colossal stone blocks strewn across the earth as though abandoned in the middle of some forgotten construction. This is Punku, a site that has puzzled archaeologists, engineers, and travelers for centuries. At first glance, it appears like the remnants of a once great structure, toppled by the forces of nature. But as one steps closer, as the details begin to emerge, it becomes clear that Punku is no ordinary ruin. Here, massive blocks of red sandstone and gray andesite lie scattered across the plain, some weighing over 100 tons. They are carved with extraordinary precision. Geometric edges, perfectly straight cuts, and intricate interlocking shapes that suggest not just skill, but a mastery of stonework that defies the expectations of its time. Some of these blocks are fashioned into the now famous H shapes, their sides symmetrical and their angles uncannily sharp, as though shaped not by hand tools, but by advanced machinery. Mainstream archaeology places the construction of Punku around 500 AD, linking it to the Tiwanaku culture, a powerful pre-Columbian civilization that thrived in this region for centuries. The Tiwanaku are known for their remarkable achievements in agriculture, social organization, and stone construction, and Punku is often seen as a ceremonial or spiritual center. According to this view, the site's precision and scale, while extraordinary, can be explained by the dedication and ingenuity of a society determined to honor their gods and rulers through monumental architecture. Yet, even as this explanation offers context, questions remain. The quarry where many of the sandstone blocks originated lies more than 10 miles away. The smaller but harder andesite stones were brought from quarries nearly 50 miles distant, across uneven terrain and at altitudes of over 12,000 feet. How did a civilization without wheels, iron tools, or draft animals transport and position stones weighing tens of tons? How did they achieve joints so tight that even today, with modern measuring equipment, the level of precision seems astonishing? The engineering challenges alone invite speculation. Some scholars propose that the Tiwanaku used teams of workers, ropes, sledges, and earthen ramps to drag the stones into place. Others suggest the use of reed boats across nearby Lake Titicaca for part of the journey. These theories paint a picture of remarkable human determination, but they also leave gaps, particularly when confronted with the sheer scale and flawless symmetry of the blocks. Then there is the question of the tools. Experimental archaeology has shown that stone tools can carve softer sandstone, but shaping the andesite, a volcanic rock almost as hard as granite, presents a greater challenge. Could bronze chisels and repetitive labor explain the smooth, machine-like cuts? Or does Puma Punku preserve evidence of techniques that have been forgotten? Some researchers propose the use of abrasive sand, pounding stones, and an immense investment of time. Others wonder if something more sophisticated might have been at play. This is where Puma Punku moves from the realm of history into mystery. A number of fringe theories have emerged over the decades, suggesting that the Tiwanaku may have inherited techniques or knowledge from a much older civilization, one perhaps lost to time or even to catastrophe. Some go further still, entertaining the possibility of extraterrestrial influence, pointing to the site's enigmatic precision as evidence of technologies beyond Earth. These ideas remain controversial, often dismissed by mainstream scholars. Yet they continue to capture the imagination of those who walk among the fallen stones, unable to reconcile what they see with what history tells them. And still, the puzzle deepens. Archaeological studies suggest that Puma Punku may have once been part of a much larger ceremonial complex, connected to Tiwanaku's vast city center. Reconstructions envision towering gateways, massive terraces, and a plaza lined with finely cut stones. If true, then what survives today is only a shadow of the site's original grandeur. What would Puma Punku have looked like in its prime, and why was it left in ruins? As we leave the windswept plains of Bolivia and the enigmatic stones of Puma Punku, our journey now carries us back across the ocean into the golden sands of Egypt. Here, in the shadow of pyramids and ancient necropolises, lies a site that continues to baffle visitors and scholars alike. Deep within the desert plateau of Saqqara, resting place of nobles, kings, and sacred bulls, stand a series of monuments so peculiar, so finely crafted, that they raise questions as timeless as the stones themselves. Beneath the sands lies the Serapeum of Saqqara, a long underground corridor cut into solid bedrock. Within these dark chambers, one finds enormous granite boxes, each one polished to a near mirror finish, their forms geometric and exact. At first glance, they appear to be simple sarcophagi, yet their scale defies easy explanation. Some weigh as much as 70 tons, carved from a single block of hard granite, quarried and transported from Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south. Their lids alone can weigh over 30 tons. Standing before them, one cannot help but wonder, what kind of tools, what kind of knowledge allowed the ancient Egyptians to create objects of such precision and size? Archaeology tells us that these boxes date to around 1300 BC, during the reign of Ramses II. They were part of the Serapeum, dedicated to the Apis bull, a sacred animal worshipped as an earthly manifestation of the god Ptah. Each time a bull died, it was interred with great ceremony in one of these massive sarcophagi. For centuries, Egyptologists have regarded them as tombs, an expression of religious devotion on a monumental scale. Yet even as this explanation offers historical grounding, the physical details raise unsettling questions. Why were the boxes crafted with such extraordinary precision, far beyond what was necessary for a ceremonial burial? Their inner chambers are cut so smoothly, with corners so sharp, that modern engineers have compared them to the tolerances of machine-made surfaces. The angles are nearly perfect, the symmetry exact, as though shaped not by hammer and chisel but by some form of advanced cutting technology. The logistical puzzle is no less daunting. How were these massive blocks of granite transported across desert and river? The mainstream view holds that vast labor forces used sledges, ropes, and lubrication to move them from quarries to Saqqara. But even if this were possible, How were the blocks lowered into underground chambers with such precision? And why go to such extremes for a burial practice? Could the symbolism alone justify such effort, or might there be more to the story? When examined closely, the boxes themselves seem almost out of place. They bear few inscriptions, no ornate carvings or hieroglyphs to celebrate the life of a king or the glory of a god. Their design is minimal, monolithic blocks polished to a gleaming finish, with interiors so finely smoothed that one could run a hand across the surface without feeling a single irregularity. In a civilization renowned for lavish decoration, why would such imposing objects be left so plain? This silence has invited speculation. Some researchers propose that the boxes were not originally created for Apis bulls at all, but were instead repurposed by later dynasties. Could they be remnants of an older, more advanced phase of Egyptian civilization, whose knowledge has since been lost? Others suggest they may have served a different function altogether, storage vessels for something of great value, or even instruments of an unknown technology. Among the more fringe theories, some point to the possibility of acoustic or energetic properties. Granite, after all, contains high levels of quartz, a mineral capable of resonating under certain conditions. Were these boxes designed to harness sound, energy, or some property of the earth itself? Or were they, as some propose, protective vaults for knowledge or relics far older than Egypt's dynasties? These ideas remain speculative, often contested by Egyptologists, but they continue to linger because of the sheer strangeness of the objects themselves. Standing in the dim light of the Serapeum, surrounded by shadows and silence, it is easy to sense the weight of mystery. The air is cool and still, broken only by the presence of these immense boxes, their surfaces gleaming under the touch of torchlight. Visitors often describe a feeling of awe, even unease, as though they are standing before something not fully understood.
The orthodox explanation remains that these sarcophagi were intended solely for sacred burials, testaments to the power and devotion of the new kingdom Egyptians. And yet, even within this framework, puzzles persist. Why build them to such extreme tolerances? Why transport granite across such immense distances when softer stone was readily available nearby? Why design them to last for millennia, outliving even the pyramids themselves in their solidity and endurance? Perhaps the greatest mystery lies not in their size or weight, but in their silence. Unlike the pyramids, unlike the temples, unlike the decorated tombs of the Valley of the Kings, these granite boxes offer no clear narrative. They do not speak in hieroglyphs, do not proclaim their purpose. They simply exist, perfect, immovable, enigmatic. As with Puma Punku, the granite boxes of Saqqara stand at the crossroads of history and mystery. They are undeniably human creations, carved by hands that lived and worked thousands of years ago. Yet the questions they pose remain as heavy as the stone itself. Were they truly just the resting places of sacred bulls, or is there another story hidden in their silence? What we do know is this: the boxes endure, as they have for over 3,000 years, undisturbed and unbroken, waiting in the shadows. They invite us to ask, to wonder, to question the limits of what we think we know about the ancient world. And perhaps, in their quiet immensity, they remind us that some answers lie just beyond our reach.
From the silent darkness of Egypt's underground chambers, our journey now rises once more into the open air, this time to the lofty heights of the Peruvian Andes. Above the historic city of Cusco, where thin mountain air sharpens the senses and clouds drift low across the ridgelines, stands a fortress-like complex that has defied centuries of explanation. These are the walls of Sacsayhuamán, immense stone ramparts that stretch across the hillside like the spine of some sleeping giant. At first sight, the walls strike the eye with their sheer presence. Towering blocks of andesite and limestone rise in tiered rows, some measuring over 20 feet in height and weighing well beyond 100 tons. They interlock with one another in patterns so tight, so seamless, that not even the thinnest blade of metal can be slipped between them. The effect is at once mesmerizing and perplexing. A geometric tapestry of stone, massive yet elegant, unyielding yet almost fluid in form. Mainstream history attributes Sacsayhuamán to the Inca civilization. Built in the 15th century under the rule of Pachacuti and his successors, the complex is believed to have served both ceremonial and military functions. From its vantage point, one can look down upon Cusco, the former capital of the Inca Empire, laid out below in the shape of a great puma, its head formed by the fortress itself. According to chroniclers of the Spanish conquest, this was no mere stronghold, but a sacred center, a place where rituals and governance intertwined. And yet, as with so many ancient sites, the deeper one looks, the more puzzling the picture becomes. The construction of Sacsayhuamán raises questions that seem to resist simple answers. How did the Inca, a civilization without wheels, iron tools, or written language, quarry, transport, and set into place stones of such staggering weight? How were the edges shaped to fit together with polygonal precision, forming walls that have withstood earthquakes for centuries while more modern structures around them have crumbled? Archaeologists propose that the Inca relied on a combination of ingenuity and manpower. Quarry sites identified nearby suggest that stones were dragged across the terrain using ropes, ramps, and rolling logs. Through patient trial and error, masons chipped and tested, gradually shaping each block until it slid perfectly into place against its neighbors. The irregular, multi-sided design may have served not only an aesthetic purpose, but also a practical one, dispersing seismic forces and rendering the walls exceptionally stable. Still, when one stands at the foot of these colossal ramparts, such explanations feel incomplete. Experimental attempts to replicate the stonework using primitive tools have often struggled to achieve anything close to the precision evident at Sacsayhuamán. The smooth, undulating surfaces of the blocks, the perfect junctions between stones, the subtle curves where massive rocks seem to melt into one another, all of it suggests a level of craftsmanship that challenges our assumptions about what was possible in the pre-Columbian world. This tension between history and mystery has opened the door to more speculative ideas. Some researchers propose that the foundations of Sacsayhuamán may predate the Inca entirely, remnants of an earlier unknown culture whose methods were inherited and adapted. Others have suggested more radical theories, that the stones were softened by plant-based chemicals, allowing them to be molded like clay before hardening into their present form. And in more fringe circles still, whispers persist of lost technologies, advanced tools, or even influences beyond the earth that enabled such monumental feats. Yet the site itself refuses to give up easy answers. The Spanish chroniclers who first encountered Sacsayhuamán described it with astonishment, noting its immensity and the impossibility of reconstructing such a marvel with the tools then available. Centuries later, visitors echo the same sentiment. How can stones of such vast proportions be moved and set without cranes, wheels, or steel? What knowledge guided the hands of the builders? Adding to the intrigue is the layout of the walls. They form zigzagging patterns across the hillside, creating a series of angles and recesses that some interpret as defensive architecture, while others see symbolic or astronomical significance. From above, the walls appear less like random fortifications and more like deliberate, carefully orchestrated designs. Could they have encoded meanings or functions we no longer comprehend? The resilience of the walls only deepens the mystery. In 1650, a massive earthquake struck Cusco, toppling churches and colonial buildings, yet the great stones of Sacsayhuamán remained unmoved. The very irregularities that seem chaotic to the eye may in fact conceal a sophisticated understanding of structural engineering, an understanding that continues to outwit modern attempts at explanation. And then there is the atmosphere of the place itself. Standing among the walls, with the city sprawling below and the mountains rising beyond, one feels both the enormity of human achievement and the weight of unanswered questions. The stones are silent, but their silence is eloquent. They speak of power, endurance, and perhaps a kind of knowledge that we have not yet rediscovered. Were the walls of Sacsayhuamán purely the work of the Inca, their ingenuity and determination crystallized in stone? Or do they represent something older, a legacy passed down from a forgotten age? Were they monuments to gods, fortresses of kings, or something more elusive, a synthesis of all these things, shaped by a worldview we can scarcely imagine today? As we search for answers, the stones endure, as they always have. They resist the erosion of time, the shaking of the earth, and the certainty of our explanations. They remind us that even in an age of satellites and lasers, there remain mysteries carved into the bedrock of human history. And so we are left to wonder, what secrets still lie hidden in the massive walls of Sacsayhuamán? Are they echoes of a lost chapter in humanity's story, or simply a testament to the unyielding brilliance of those who came before? From the towering walls of Sacsayhuamán in the high Andes, our path now carries us across oceans and continents, into the heart of the Middle East. Here, among the rolling hills and fertile valleys of Lebanon, lies another enigma carved in stone. One so vast, so overwhelming in scale, that even seasoned engineers pause in disbelief. This is Baalbek, an ancient city whose ruins still whisper of forgotten grandeur. And at its core, embedded in the very foundation of its great temple complex, rest stones so large they seem almost beyond the reach of human hands. They are known as the Trilithon, 3 immense blocks of limestone, each measuring over 60 feet in length, 14 feet in height, and weighing an estimated 800 to 1,000 tons. Aligned side by side, they form a seamless platform within the temple of Jupiter, the Roman god of sky and thunder. Standing before them, one is struck not only by their size, but by their precision. The stones are fitted so closely together that their joins appear as faint lines in an otherwise continuous wall of stone. Above them, smaller blocks were placed, forming the foundations of one of the grandest sanctuaries of the Roman Empire. History tells us that Baalbek was a place of worship for millennia, long before Rome claimed it as Heliopolis, the city of the sun. Its origins stretch back into the hazy reaches of antiquity. By the time of the Roman emperors, Baalbek had become a monumental complex of temples, colonnades, and courtyards. The Temple of Jupiter was the centerpiece, rising with such scale and opulence that it dwarfed even Rome's own sanctuaries. But if the Romans built much of what we see today, the question of the Trilithon remains unsettled. How did stones of such enormous weight come to rest in this remote plateau, lifted and aligned with such apparent ease? Roman engineering was formidable. They constructed aqueducts, amphitheaters, and roads that still endure. Yet even for Rome, the transportation and placement of blocks of this magnitude poses a daunting puzzle. Conventional explanations suggest that the Romans employed vast numbers of workers, combined with ingenious methods of leverage, ramps, and rollers. The limestone quarries lie just a short distance from the site, and indeed one can still see a colossal unfinished block known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, abandoned in the quarry, estimated to weigh over 200 tons. This unfinished monolith offers a tantalizing glimpse of the quarrying process, but it also deepens the mystery. If the Romans truly had the means to move such massive stones, why leave this one behind? Was it simply too heavy to transport? Or was its abandonment evidence of limits reached, of an ambition that even Rome could not fulfill? Here is where Baalbek enters the realm of speculation. Some historians propose that the Trilithon may predate the Roman construction, that the Romans built upon an earlier foundation whose origins lie in a more distant past. Could the Trilithon belong to a culture older than Rome, older even than recorded history in this region? The Phoenicians, the Greeks, and other local civilizations have all been considered. But the absence of definitive records leaves the question unresolved. Others have suggested more unconventional possibilities. Could lost techniques of stone moving, now forgotten to us, have enabled ancient builders to accomplish feats we struggle to explain today? Were the stones shifted with methods of balance, vibration, or even rudimentary mechanical systems that we have yet to rediscover? And in the more fringe circles of thought, the Trilithon has even been linked to myths of giants, or to the idea of knowledge imparted by beings not of this world. The stones themselves, however, remain quiet, offering no clear answer. They sit in silence, as they have for thousands of years, their surfaces weathered by time, but their position unyielding. When one stands at their base, dwarfed by their scale, it is easy to sense why they have inspired awe and speculation across centuries. What is certain is that the Trilithon is unlike almost anything else in the ancient world. Though megaliths can be found in many cultures, at Stonehenge, at Sacsayhuamán, at Puma Punku, few compare to the sheer size and precision of these blocks. Even today, the logistics of moving and setting stones of this magnitude would require specialized equipment, cranes, and heavy machinery. To imagine this being done 2,000 years ago, with ropes, wood, and human labor alone, stretches the imagination to its limits. And yet, the stones are here. They are not legend, not myth, but reality, embedded in the earth, carrying the weight of history upon them. Whether Roman, pre-Roman, or something else entirely, their existence demands explanation, even as that explanation continues to elude us. Perhaps that is the essence of Baalbek's mystery. It is not that we have no theories, but that none feel wholly sufficient. The Trilithon embodies a paradox, a feat of undeniable human craftsmanship, yet one that seems to exceed the boundaries of what we comfortably believe ancient humans could achieve. As the sun sets over the ruins of Baalbek, casting long shadows across the stones, the questions linger in the air. Who first conceived of lifting blocks so vast? By what means were they moved, aligned, and set into place? And if such knowledge once existed, where has it gone? In the silence of the Lebanese hills, the Trilithon endures as both monument and riddle. A riddle carved not in myth, but in stone itself. Beneath the restless waters of the East China Sea, off the southern coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, lies a structure that has stirred wonder, debate, and mystery for decades. The currents here are strong, sometimes treacherous, and the seafloor falls away into shadows that conceal more than they reveal. But rising from those depths, shrouded in swirls of sand and schools of darting fish, is an immense formation of stone, precise, angular, and impossibly geometric. Divers describe it as descending into another world, a drowned city carved in rock, where sharp staircases rise toward the surface and vast terraces stretch into the deep, like remnants of a forgotten civilization swallowed by the sea. This place is known as the Yonaguni Monument, or more formally, the Yonaguni Submarine Ruins. At first glance, it does not seem natural. Its towering walls, its straight, clean lines, its carefully angled corners, everything suggests intention. The structure covers a massive area, nearly 500 feet long and over 75 feet tall in places, with features that resemble platforms, steps, roads, and even a massive flat plaza. Some divers say it feels less like a natural rock formation and more like the ruins of a sunken temple complex, waiting to be rediscovered. But is it a city built by human hands, or a trick of geology, sculpted by the relentless work of tides, currents, and time? The mystery first emerged in 1986, when a local diver, searching for schools of hammerhead sharks, stumbled upon the formation. Word spread quickly, drawing the attention of scientists, archaeologists, and adventurers alike. Soon, the Yonaguni monument became one of the most hotly debated archaeological enigmas in the world. Mainstream geologists argue that the monument is a natural formation. They point to the region's geology, dominated by sandstone and mudstone, which are prone to splitting and fracturing along straight lines. Over thousands of years, tectonic activity, erosion, and underwater currents could, in theory, have created structures with sharp angles and flat surfaces. In this explanation, the steps are little more than the product of erosion, mimicking the appearance of man-made terraces. The walls are fractured cliff faces. The roads and plazas are simply broad, flat rock beds revealed by shifting sediments. Yet, even as geology offers answers, the monument itself seems to resist them. Some researchers point to details that do not fit easily into natural explanations. For example, divers have documented what appear to be deliberate staircases, each step cut to a uniform height. They have traced channels and trenches that follow precise, linear paths. Some even describe carvings etched into the stone, faint, eroded, but suggestive of patterns or symbols. Most striking of all is a formation that many claim resembles a massive stone head, gazing out into the sea, as if it were once meant to guard an ancient settlement. If the Yonaguni monument is man-made, then the implications are profound. The structure lies well below sea level, which means it would have been constructed at a time when the area was above water. Geological studies suggest that Yonaguni Island's coastlines were last exposed before the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 years ago. If so, then the monument could date back to a period long before the rise of known civilizations, older than Mesopotamia, older than Egypt, perhaps even older than the first farming communities. Could an advanced culture have existed here in Japan's distant past, only to be lost to the rising seas when glaciers melted and oceans rose? If so, how much of human history remains hidden beneath the waves, erased by time and tide? Fringe theories have gone even further, weaving the Yonaguni monument into global myths of lost continents and forgotten civilizations. Some connect it to the legendary island of Mu, a supposed Pacific counterpart to Atlantis. Others speculate that it may be evidence of an advanced maritime culture whose traces can be found across the Pacific, linking Japan to distant regions such as South America. These theories remain controversial, often dismissed by scholars, yet they persist, fueled by the undeniable sense of mystery that the monument projects. For divers, the experience is visceral. Swimming along the monument's massive steps, some nearly 20 feet high, one cannot help but feel the weight of questions pressing from the shadows. The sheer scale of the formations, the haunting quiet of the deep, and the way the light plays across the stone give the impression of a place both alien and ancient. Whether natural or artificial, it does not feel accidental. The Japanese government has not recognized the site as a cultural monument, largely because the debate remains unresolved. Archaeological investigations have been limited, and much of the discussion depends on photographs, dive reports, and independent research. Without definitive evidence, such as tools, artifacts, or clear inscriptions, the monument remains suspended between two worlds, the realm of nature and the realm of human creation. And so, the questions linger. If this is the work of nature, why does it so closely mimic the architecture of humans? If it is man-made, then who built it, and how did their knowledge vanish from history? Could there have been entire chapters of human civilization erased by the rising seas, their cities drowned and forgotten, leaving only fragments like Yonaguni to hint at what once was? In the silence beneath the waves, the monument offers no answers. It stands as it has for millennia, half buried in sand, sculpted by currents, watched only by fish and divers who dare to descend. Its presence is undeniable. Its meaning remains elusive. Perhaps the greatest mystery of the Yonaguni monument is not whether it was built by humans or shaped by nature, but what it tells us about the limits of our knowledge. History, after all, is not a straight line. It is a puzzle, with missing pieces scattered across time and space, some buried beneath the earth, others lost beneath the sea. And as divers resurface, leaving the monument once again to its solitude, the question follows them back into the light. What else lies hidden beneath the oceans, waiting to rewrite the story of who we are, and how far back our story truly goes? The journey through ancient mysteries now takes us from the silent depths of the Pacific to the rolling, sun-baked hills of southeastern Turkey. Here, in the arid plains near the city of Şanlıurfa, lies one of the most extraordinary discoveries of modern archaeology, Göbekli Tepe. At first glance, it may not seem like much. A series of stone circles, partially buried beneath the earth, crowned by tall, weathered pillars. But as the sun shifts across the horizon, the shadows reveal a striking geometry. Each pillar, shaped like a massive T, stands tall and defiant against the erosion of time. Some rise nearly 20 feet, weighing up to 20 tons, their surfaces adorned with carvings of animals, foxes, snakes, wild boars, and vultures, all etched with a precision that belies their age. Archaeologists date Göbekli Tepe to around 9600 BC. This means it predates Stonehenge by more than 6,000 years, and the Great Pyramids of Giza by over 7,000. The accepted timeline of human history places this site at the very dawn of agriculture, long before the rise of complex cities, writing, or organized religion. And yet here stands a monumental sanctuary, a place of gathering, constructed with an engineering skill that should not have existed at the time. The stones themselves speak a language of mystery. Each T-shaped pillar is thought to represent a human form, its crossbar as shoulders, its shaft as a body. Some even bear faint carvings of arms, hands, and belts, suggesting that these megaliths were not merely stones, but symbolic guardians of an ancient ritual space. Was this a temple, perhaps the world's first? Or something else entirely, a celestial observatory, a communal gathering ground, or a place where myth and ceremony intertwined? The question that lingers most sharply is, how was it built? At this point in history, humans were thought to be small bands of nomadic hunter-gatherers. They lacked beasts of burden, the wheel, and metal tools. And yet, someone quarried these immense stones, transported them across uneven terrain, and erected them in a precise circular alignment. Did this require a labor force larger than we believe possible for early human groups? Or was there an overlooked level of social organization, a glimpse into a lost chapter of civilization's rise? Mainstream archaeologists suggest that Göbekli Tepe may have been the catalyst for agriculture itself. Perhaps people gathered here first for ritual, feasting, and community, and only afterward realized the need for sustained food production, sparking the transition from hunting and gathering to farming. If true, it reverses the accepted story of human progress, making spirituality, rather than survival, the seed of civilization. But beyond the boundaries of academic thought, more speculative theories emerge. Some researchers note the astronomical alignments of the pillars, suggesting that the site may have tracked the stars, the solstices, or even the precession of the equinoxes. Could it have been an ancient observatory, built to understand the heavens long before written history recorded such knowledge? Others look to the carvings for clues. The animals depicted, snakes, scorpions, birds, seem to represent not only the fauna of the region, but symbolic archetypes. One controversial interpretation even suggests that the carvings may encode celestial events, including a possible comet strike around 10,900 BC, an impact some believe triggered the Younger Dryas, a sudden global cooling that marked the end of the Ice Age. If Göbekli Tepe preserves a memory of that cataclysm, then it may also hold humanity's oldest record of disaster and survival. Of course, there are even more fringe perspectives. Some propose that Göbekli Tepe's builders were guided by knowledge far beyond their means, perhaps remnants of a forgotten advanced culture lost at the end of the Ice Age. Others stretch further still, entertaining the possibility of influences not of this world. Such ideas remain controversial, often dismissed by mainstream science, yet they linger in the public imagination because of one undeniable fact. The site does not neatly fit within our current narrative of history. Adding to the enigma is the deliberate burial of the site itself. At some point, thousands of years after its construction, Göbekli Tepe was carefully covered with earth and stone, preserved like a time capsule beneath the ground. Why would its builders, or their descendants, go to such lengths to conceal it? Was it a ritual act of closure, a way to retire the sanctity of the site? Or was there something within these stones that they sought to hide, to protect, or perhaps to forget? Or, even today, only a fraction of the site has been uncovered. Vast portions remain buried beneath the hillsides, waiting for the slow work of excavation to bring them back to light. What secrets lie beneath those untouched layers? More circles? More carvings? Or perhaps something entirely unexpected, something that could reshape our understanding of human origins once again? Göbekli Tepe stands as a paradox, both a monument of stone and a puzzle of history. It forces us to question the neat timelines we have drawn for ourselves, to reconsider what humans were capable of at the dawn of civilization. Who were these builders? How did they organize, plan, and execute such a grand vision in an age when survival itself should have been their only concern? As the wind sweeps across the Turkish plateau, whispering through the stones, the mystery deepens. We are left to wonder, is Göbekli Tepe merely the first of many lost chapters in human history, buried beneath the soil of forgotten lands? And if so, what other structures, what other truths might still be waiting, hidden in the earth, to remind us that our story is far older and far stranger than we ever imagined? Beneath the quiet streets of Paola, Malta, lies a hidden world carved entirely from stone. To the unknowing passerby, there is little to suggest that below the surface exists one of the most enigmatic architectural achievements of the ancient world, the Hypogeum of Saflieni. At first glance, it seems impossible that such a structure could even exist. A vast subterranean temple complex, hewn not from bricks or stacked stones, but from the living bedrock itself. The descent begins through narrow passageways, dimly lit, each step drawing the visitor deeper into an environment that feels less like human construction and more like entering a forgotten realm. Chamber after chamber reveals an astonishing complexity. Corbelled ceilings, intricate carvings, carefully aligned doorways, and polished walls that echo with the voices of those who enter. It is a place where sound behaves strangely, resonating in deep, haunting tones, as if the rock itself were alive. Archaeologists date the Hypogeum to around 4,000 to 2,500 BC, making it older than the pyramids of Egypt and older still than Stonehenge. Yet, unlike those above-ground monuments, the Hypogeum was hidden away, buried beneath centuries of silence until its rediscovery in 1902 during construction work. Inside, excavators found not only chambers and passageways, but also thousands of human remains, men, women, and children resting within this carved labyrinth. Was this a necropolis, a city of the dead, or a sacred temple for ritual and initiation? The mystery deepens when one considers the sheer difficulty of its construction. The Hypogeum was carved using only primitive tools, stone hammers, antler picks, and flint blades. Yet the chambers exhibit remarkable precision. Some walls are smoothed to a polish, others curve in perfect arcs, and the structure itself seems to echo architectural techniques that would not become common for millennia. How did a Neolithic society, without metal tools or advanced engineering, achieve such mastery underground? The acoustics of the Hypogeum offer another layer of intrigue. In one chamber, known as the Oracle Room, a voice spoken at the right pitch resonates throughout the entire structure, vibrating with a low frequency that can be felt in the body. Researchers have suggested that this resonance was deliberately engineered, creating an environment for trance, meditation, or ritual. But how could a prehistoric culture have understood the science of acoustics so precisely? Did they stumble upon it by chance, or was this knowledge inherited from a tradition we have yet to uncover? As with so many ancient mysteries, the Hypogeum invites both sober archaeological analysis and speculative imagination. Mainstream scholars suggest it was a temple and burial site, evidence of a sophisticated but localized Maltese culture. Yet, the scale and design have fueled more fringe theories. Some claim that the Hypogeum was not merely a place of worship but a gateway to other realms, a subterranean sanctuary where altered states of consciousness were induced through sound and ritual. Legends abound. Early excavators spoke of elongated skulls discovered within the chambers, remains that seemed unusual, as if belonging to a race apart from ordinary humans. These skulls were said to have disappeared during the 20th century, lost or removed from museum collections, leaving behind only whispers and speculation. Were they simply deformed human skulls, the result of ritual binding, or evidence of something more unsettling? Others point to the Hypogeum's alignment with celestial cycles. Like Stonehenge or the temples of Egypt, some believe it may have been designed with an astronomical purpose in mind, its passages attuned to the rhythms of the stars. Could this subterranean temple have functioned as both an observatory and a sanctuary, a place where sky and earth met in ritual harmony? And then there are the more radical ideas, that the Hypogeum was connected to a lost civilization predating known history, or that its resonance chambers were used to harness energies we barely understand today. Some even suggest it could have been part of a global network of sacred sites, structures like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey or Puma Punku in Bolivia, each one linked by a forgotten knowledge of sound, stone, and spirit. What remains undeniable is the profound sense of mystery that lingers within its halls. To walk through the Hypogeum is to confront a silence older than recorded history, a silence carved by human hands yet infused with something that feels beyond the ordinary. Why was so much effort invested into building downward, into the earth, rather than upward toward the sky? Was it protection, secrecy, or a symbolic descent into the underworld? The answers remain elusive. Today, the Hypogeum is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, carefully preserved, its chambers accessible only to a limited number of visitors each day. Those fortunate enough to descend into its depths often describe an overwhelming sensation, part awe, part unease, as though the stone walls hold memories we cannot quite access. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all, that the Hypogeum exists not just as a monument of stone, but as a question posed across thousands of years. A question about what our ancestors knew, and what we may never fully understand. What secrets still lie hidden in the darkness below Malta's soil? Were the people who carved this labyrinth simply honoring their dead, or reaching for something far greater, something we have forgotten? The Hypogeum does not answer. It waits, silent, resonant, and eternal. High in the rugged highlands of northern Ethiopia, the earth itself gives way to an astonishing vision. At first glance, the landscape of Lalibela appears quiet. Dusty roads, rolling hills, scattered villages. But hidden within the bedrock lies something almost inconceivable. 11 monolithic churches, not built from stone blocks, but carved directly from the living rock beneath the ground. These structures, cut downward into the red volcanic tuff, rise from sunken courtyards with walls and windows sculpted as though by an invisible hand. Standing before them, one cannot help but feel disoriented. They are not ruins, nor mere remnants of an ancient past. These churches are complete, three-dimensional masterpieces, fully formed, as if the stone itself yielded willingly to the will of its creators. And yet, their creation raises some of the most perplexing questions in the study of ancient architecture. According to tradition, these remarkable monuments were commissioned during the reign of King Lalibela in the 12th and 13th centuries. The story tells of a ruler determined to build a New Jerusalem, a sacred city for pilgrims at a time when the journey to Palestine had become perilous. The result is a network of churches connected by passageways, tunnels, and trenches, some aligned with symbolic references to biblical sites. For Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, Lalibela is still one of the holiest cities in the world, a place of living faith where worship continues uninterrupted for centuries. But even with this historical framework, one cannot escape the mysteries. How were such monumental structures carved with the tools of the time? Imagine artisans lowering themselves into pits, chiseling downward through solid rock, shaping entire churches, complete with vaulted ceilings, intricate columns, and precise windows, without modern machinery. Even the logistics challenge the imagination. Where did the workers place the tons of stone they removed? How did they coordinate the cuts so that the churches emerged symmetrical, aligned, and proportionate? One of the most striking of these is Beta Georgis, the Church of St. George. Viewed from above, it takes the unmistakable form of a cross, its lines sharp, its proportions flawless. Descend into its courtyard, and the effect is overwhelming. A towering monolith surrounded by vertical walls, the sky framed above like a window to the heavens. Who first stood here after the final chisels fell silent? And what thoughts ran through their minds as they gazed at this immense accomplishment? Mainstream archaeology attributes the achievement to an immense workforce, perhaps thousands of laborers working tirelessly for years, if not decades. The soft, volcanic rock may have made carving somewhat easier compared to granite or limestone. Wooden tools, metal chisels, and hammers could, in theory, explain the process. Still, the scale remains staggering. Was it truly possible for such immense and precise work to be done in such a short time frame with such rudimentary tools? Legends offer another perspective. Local tradition speaks of angels who descended at night to complete what humans had begun during the day. For many, this is more than metaphor. It is a testament to the sense that something otherworldly aided in their construction. Others have suggested that the builders possessed lost techniques, ancient methods of stoneworking now forgotten to time. Could there have been an earlier, unknown culture with skills that were later absorbed into the story of King Lalibela? Fringe theories go further still. Some propose that Lalibela may be linked to even older mysteries of megalithic construction across the globe, sites where stone appears to have been shaped with inexplicable ease. Could these Ethiopian churches hint at a continuity of knowledge passed down across continents and generations, only to be lost again? Others raise the possibility of acoustic or vibrational technologies, speculative tools said to soften stone or make carving effortless. Such ideas remain unproven, yet the silence of history leaves room for their consideration. Beyond the engineering lies the symbolism. The churches are not random in design or placement. Some are linked by narrow tunnels and trenches that seem to mirror a spiritual journey, from descent into darkness to emergence into light. Water channels, still flowing today, weave through the complex, their presence both practical and deeply symbolic. Was Lalibela intended as more than a city of worship? Could it have been conceived as a spiritual map, a three-dimensional expression of pilgrimage and transformation carved into the very earth? The churches themselves also carry architectural features that raise questions. Certain doorways and windows resemble styles found in much older structures, as though the builders were echoing traditions from long before their time. Could they have drawn inspiration from forgotten sources? Or are we glimpsing hints of a deeper, hidden past of the Ethiopian highlands, one yet to be uncovered? Standing today in the cool shadows of these rock-hewn chambers, one feels a blend of awe and unease. The air carries centuries of prayers, chants, and incense, yet the stone itself whispers an older, more silent mystery. These are not ruins reclaimed by the earth. They are living monuments, still serving the purpose for which they were made, still holding their secrets just beyond our grasp. Perhaps that is their greatest enigma. Unlike many ancient wonders that lie abandoned and mute, Lalibela remains alive, breathing with the faith of its people. And yet, even here, among priests and pilgrims, scholars and visitors, the question lingers: how did they do it? What knowledge, what vision allowed stone to become cathedral? As the light fades across the Ethiopian plateau, casting long shadows over the courtyards and crosses of Lalibela, we are left to wonder: are these churches simply the result of human devotion and ingenuity? Or do they hint at something more, an echo of a forgotten chapter in human history, waiting still beneath the stone to be revealed? Beneath the rolling hills of Zhejiang province in eastern China, a hidden world lies silent and submerged in shadow. At first glance, the surface of the land gives little away. Gentle slopes, clusters of trees, the kind of pastoral landscape that has been cultivated for centuries. Yet, beneath this seemingly ordinary terrain exists one of the most perplexing architectural enigmas in human history: the Longyou caves. Discovered in 1992 by a group of curious villagers who decided to drain what they thought were simple ponds, these massive subterranean chambers revealed themselves not as natural formations, but as something altogether different. Vast spaces carved into solid sandstone, with walls etched in meticulous parallel lines, ceilings that soar like the vaults of cathedrals, and chambers so vast they could hold entire temples. To stand inside one of these chambers is to feel both awe and unease. The silence is almost oppressive, broken only by the faint echo of footsteps against smooth, chiseled stone. Each wall is adorned with thousands of perfectly parallel grooves, extending with unwavering precision, as though applied by some unknown machine. No debris from excavation was ever found nearby. No tools, no signs of habitation, no inscriptions. Just cavern after cavern, each measuring thousands of square meters, their surfaces cut with an accuracy that suggests deliberate intent rather than random quarrying. Archaeologists estimate that these caves were carved more than 2,000 years ago, sometime before the reign of the Qin dynasty in the 3rd century BC. If this dating is accurate, it means the creators of the Longyou caves accomplished this feat at a time when tools were rudimentary: bronze chisels, wooden mallets, and sheer human determination. But could such implements really explain chambers as large as football fields, carved with uncanny uniformity without a single structural collapse? The scale of labor alone is staggering. Scholars attempting to reconstruct the process suggest that removing the sheer volume of stone from a single cave would have taken thousands of workers decades of continuous effort. And yet, despite this monumental investment of time and energy, no historical record mentions their construction. Ancient Chinese texts are known for their detailed chronicles, from dynastic achievements to local affairs, and yet on the subject of these massive underground works, there is silence. Why would such a project, if indeed it was a project of the state or a ruling dynasty, go completely unrecorded? One theory proposes that the caves served as storage, perhaps for grain or military supplies, their location offering both concealment and protection. Yet, the sheer artistry and consistency of the carved walls seem excessive for mere storage. Others suggest they may have been ritual spaces, places of worship, or even tombs. But no funerary remains, religious artifacts, or decorative elements have ever been found. Unlike the grandeur of imperial tombs or temples, these chambers are marked only by their emptiness and their mathematical precision. And then comes the problem of engineering. Each cave was carved in close proximity to the others, yet none intersect, suggesting a highly detailed plan was in place before excavation even began. Their walls and ceilings remain stable even after more than 2 millennia, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of geology and structural integrity far beyond what is usually attributed to ancient builders of the time. Could the people of that era have possessed advanced surveying methods, now forgotten? Or were they inheriting knowledge from an even earlier civilization, one whose traces have since been lost to history? The parallel markings covering the walls are perhaps the most enigmatic feature of all. They run in consistent patterns across ceilings and vertical surfaces alike, as though applied with an enormous brush or mechanical device. Traditional explanations suggest these grooves were the result of hand chiseling, a byproduct of scraping away sandstone layer by layer. But why maintain such uniformity throughout every chamber? Was it simply a technique for stability, or could the markings themselves have held symbolic or functional meaning now beyond our comprehension? Speculative theories abound. Some have proposed that the caves are the remnants of an unknown technological culture, one capable of stoneworking techniques that would not be rediscovered until millennia later. Others have imagined they may have been the work of outsiders, migrants perhaps, bringing forgotten knowledge or even more radical interpretations involving extraterrestrial assistance. Such ideas, though unprovable, reflect the sense of mystery the Longyou caves continue to inspire. What is undeniable is that the caves raise more questions than they answer. If built as storage, why no remnants of stored goods? If intended as ritual spaces, why no signs of ritual use? If quarries, why no evidence of stone being transported or used elsewhere? And above all, why does the historical record remain silent about their creation? Walking through their vast interiors, one is struck by the impression that these spaces were not abandoned, but rather left incomplete, awaiting a purpose that never came, or perhaps serving one that has since been erased from memory. The grooves in the walls, repetitive yet mesmerizing, resemble lines of an undeciphered script, as if the caves themselves are texts carved into the earth, speaking a language humanity has forgotten how to read. In the quiet depths of the Longyou caves, one is left to wonder, were these monumental halls the product of extraordinary human perseverance, now obscured by time? Or do they hint at something far older, far stranger, a chapter of human history that has slipped through the cracks of recorded memory? The sandstone walls keep their silence. The chambers remain dark, hollow, and resolute, and the mystery of who carved them and why lingers still, inviting us to question just how much of our past we truly understand. Beneath the windswept plains of Cappadocia in central Turkey lies a world few could imagine, a city hidden not above the ground but deep beneath it. The entrance is unassuming, a narrow shaft in the earth, easily overlooked among the region's volcanic rock formations. Yet descending through its tunnels reveals a staggering architectural achievement. Derinkuyu, an underground city carved directly into stone, descending some 280 feet below the surface. Vast chambers unfold one after another, ventilation shafts stretching skyward, stables carved with careful precision, storage rooms large enough to sustain thousands, even entire chapels etched into the earth's embrace. From the very first glimpse, the scale is overwhelming. Derinkuyu is not a single cavern or a scattered collection of caves. It is a labyrinth, layered with purpose and design. Archaeologists have documented at least 18 levels, though not all are accessible. Narrow passageways link wide communal spaces, and rolling stone doors, massive circular boulders cut to fit perfectly into entryways, still rest in place, ready to be rolled shut against an intruder. It is not only a feat of engineering but also of foresight, a subterranean world crafted for survival. Mainstream scholarship suggests that the first stages of Derinkuyu were built during the early centuries BC, possibly by the Phrygians, who were skilled in stoneworking and known to inhabit the region. Later, it is believed that Byzantine communities expanded the city, especially during the turbulent centuries of invasions, when entire populations sought refuge from armies sweeping across Anatolia. Indeed, the city's design seems to confirm this defensive purpose. The ventilation system, one of the most sophisticated of its kind, could support tens of thousands of people underground for months at a time. Wells were dug deep enough to provide fresh water, isolated from the surface to prevent contamination or sabotage. Food stores were vast, with granaries capable of holding enough grain to feed a hidden community. Every feature speaks of survival against relentless threats. And yet, questions linger. The sheer scale of Derinkuyu defies simple explanation. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? If it was merely a shelter during times of war, why build so deep and why so vast? Other communities in the ancient world built fortresses on hills, walls around their towns, or temporary hideouts in mountains. Derinkuyu is different. It is as though its builders anticipated not just days or weeks in hiding, but entire lifetimes underground. Archaeologists have long debated whether Derinkuyu was constructed all at once or gradually expanded over centuries. Some evidence suggests multiple phases, with the earliest levels perhaps dating back thousands of years earlier than commonly assumed. This possibility raises uncomfortable questions. Could the city's origins stretch into prehistory, to an age long before written records in the region? If so, what culture possessed both the need and the ability to construct such an elaborate refuge? Even its engineering provokes wonder. The rock of Cappadocia is soft volcanic tuff, relatively easy to carve, yet also prone to collapse if cut improperly. To create chambers large enough to house hundreds without modern reinforcements requires both skill and intimate knowledge of geology. How did ancient builders, with only basic tools, prevent the ceilings from caving in? How did they ensure the delicate balance of airflow across dozens of levels, avoiding suffocation or smoke buildup from fires? The mysteries of Derinkuyu grow deeper when one considers the cultural memory of underground cities. Legends in the region speak of hidden civilizations and forgotten peoples dwelling below the earth. In some local traditions, these subterranean worlds were said to have been built not merely by humans, but with guidance from beings who came from elsewhere. Myths that scholars classify as folklore, yet which linger in the imagination. Could such tales be echoes of ancient encounters, remembered in stories long after their meaning was lost? Fringe theories have suggested even more speculative possibilities. Some claim Derinkuyu was not only a refuge but a deliberate attempt to escape something catastrophic above, whether enemy armies, natural disasters, or even cosmic events. Could it be that the inhabitants sought shelter from a changing climate, volcanic eruptions, or meteor strikes? Others wonder whether such underground complexes might have served as more than just bunkers, but as centers of ritual, storage for forgotten technologies, or remnants of a civilization erased from history. It is worth noting that Derinkuyu is not alone. Throughout Cappadocia, dozens of underground cities have been discovered. Kaymakli, Uzkonak, and many more. Yet none approach the scale of Derinkuyu. This suggests a cultural pattern, a shared knowledge of subterranean construction, and perhaps even a network of underground communities spanning the region. But to what end? Were these cities connected, functioning as a hidden world beneath the ancient landscape, or were they isolated refuges, each constructed in times of dire necessity? Even today, much of Derinkuyu remains unexplored. Sections of the city are too fragile for excavation, their tunnels collapsing under the weight of centuries. Others remain sealed, their passages leading into darkness where no one has walked in millennia. What secrets might these untouched chambers hold? Carvings, artifacts, inscriptions, perhaps even evidence that could finally reveal who first conceived of this subterranean marvel. And yet, the silence of Derinkuyu speaks as loudly as its stone walls. It tells us of human ingenuity and determination, but also of mystery. Standing within its chambers, one cannot help but feel both awe and unease, as though stepping into a world built for reasons we still do not fully grasp. Was this truly the work of frightened villagers seeking refuge? Or was there some greater purpose, one we can no longer comprehend? As the wind sweeps once more across the plains of Cappadocia, the question remains suspended between history and myth. What compelled ancient hands to carve an entire city into the earth? And perhaps more hauntingly, what else might still lie hidden beneath our feet, waiting to be uncovered? Beneath the lush canopies of Costa Rica's rainforests and scattered across its fertile plains lie strange and silent guardians, perfectly rounded stone spheres. Some rest in isolated fields, half buried in the soil, while others appear in clusters, as if deliberately arranged by an unseen hand. Their surfaces, weathered by centuries of rain and sun, gleam faintly when caught in the light, giving them the appearance of ancient monuments waiting to reveal their secrets. These stones, some no larger than a fist, others weighing over 15 tons and measuring more than 8 feet in diameter, stand as one of the most enduring enigmas of the ancient world. Archaeologists first encountered these mysterious orbs in the 1930s during the clearing of land by the United Fruit Company. Bulldozers, carving through dense jungle to make way for banana plantations, revealed the first of the spheres, carefully crafted, impossibly precise. Workers, uncertain of their origin, sometimes destroyed them, hoping to find gold hidden inside. None was ever found. Instead, what emerged was a puzzle that has only deepened with time. Who made these spheres? How did they achieve such flawless geometry? And, perhaps most intriguingly, why? Mainstream archaeology suggests that the spheres were created by the Diki culture, a pre-Columbian society that flourished in southern Costa Rica around 500 AD to 1500 AD. These people were skilled artisans, known for their gold work, pottery, and stone carving. The spheres are believed to have been made by hammering and polishing native stones, such as gabbro, limestone, or sandstone, into smooth, rounded forms. Some researchers propose that the stones were shaped through repeated cycles of heating and cooling, combined with pecking using harder tools like hammerstones. Yet, even with these theories, the technical challenge remains staggering. To produce such perfect spheres, across such a wide range of sizes, without the use of metal tools or advanced measuring instruments, would require not only immense patience, but also a sophisticated understanding of geometry and craftsmanship. How could a society with no written language, no known system of advanced mathematics, achieve a level of precision that rivals modern machine work? Equally puzzling is their distribution. The spheres are scattered across the Diki Delta and the Isla del Caño, with some found miles away from any known quarry. Moving stones of such immense weight through dense jungle would have been a feat in itself, demanding a level of coordination and manpower not often associated with pre-Columbian societies in the region. Were they rolled on logs, transported on rafts, or does their very presence in such diverse locations hint at lost techniques of engineering and transport? When considering their purpose, the mystery deepens further. Some spheres were discovered aligned in geometric patterns, squares, triangles, and straight lines pointing toward magnetic north. Could these arrangements have served as astronomical markers, aligning with celestial bodies or seasonal events, much like the great megalithic sites of Europe and the Middle East? Or were they markers of territory, symbols of power placed to convey authority and social order within the Dikis culture? Another possibility lies in the realm of the spiritual. In many indigenous traditions, the circle represents perfection, eternity, and the cosmos. Could the spheres have been physical embodiments of cosmological beliefs, crafted not for utility but as sacred objects meant to bridge the earthly and the divine? Some local legends speak of the stones as the weapons of the gods, hurled down from the heavens. Others describe them as symbols of the sun, embodying life-giving energy. But as with so many ancient mysteries, more speculative theories inevitably emerge. Some researchers suggest that the stones may predate the Diki altogether, inherited rather than created by them, remnants of a far older and unknown civilization. Others point to the incredible precision of the largest spheres and argue they are evidence of lost technologies, perhaps even knowledge passed down from advanced seafaring peoples or, according to more fringe perspectives, extraterrestrial visitors. Could the spheres have been navigational markers, visible from the air, meant to guide travelers across land or sea? Or perhaps they were part of a grander, now lost system of communication, a language written not in words, but in geometry and placement. Adding to the mystery is the fate of many of these artifacts. Since their discovery, hundreds of spheres have been removed from their original locations, scattered into private collections, gardens, and museums. Without careful documentation of their original placement, much of the contextual information that might have explained their purpose has been lost forever. Today, only a fraction remain in situ, preserved as part of Costa Rica's cultural heritage. In 2014, UNESCO declared the pre-Columbian chiefdom settlements with stone spheres of the Dikis a World Heritage Site, recognizing their significance as unique examples of ancient human creativity. Yet even under this protection, the questions remain unanswered. The stones endure as silent monuments, witnesses to a knowledge we have yet to fully understand. Standing among them, one cannot help but feel their presence. The sheer weight, the deliberate form, the patience behind their creation, all speak to a purpose that transcends mere decoration. They seem to hold within their curved surfaces a story just out of reach, a narrative obscured by the passage of centuries. Were they symbols of power, guides to the heavens, remnants of a forgotten science, or something else entirely? The stone spheres of Costa Rica remain a riddle carved in stone. Their round perfection resists easy explanation, challenging our assumptions about the limits of ancient craftsmanship. Perhaps the most haunting question is not how they were made, but why? What compelled a culture to invest such effort into shaping the earth into perfect forms, only to leave no written record of their meaning? And, more curiously still, how many of these stones might still lie hidden beneath the soil and jungle, waiting for discovery? Like so many ancient mysteries, The spheres invite us not only to marvel, but also to wonder. In their silence, they remind us that history is far from complete, that even in the most unlikely corners of the world, secrets of the past still linger, waiting for us to listen. Beneath the rolling green hills of the Boyne Valley in Ireland lies a place that defies time itself. From a distance, it appears almost ordinary, a large grass-covered mound rising gently from the landscape, crowned with a white quartz facade. But hidden within this ancient monument is one of the most extraordinary feats of prehistoric engineering: Newgrange Passage Tomb. Dating back to around 3200 BC, Newgrange is older than the pyramids of Giza, older even than Stonehenge. It stands as part of the Brú na Bóinne complex, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that continues to puzzle archaeologists, historians, and astronomers alike. The mound itself spans over 250 feet in diameter and rises nearly 40 feet in height, its structure supported by more than 97 massive curbstones, some weighing several tons. Each is carved with swirling patterns of spirals, lozenges, and concentric circles, symbols whose meanings remain elusive. At its heart lies a long, narrow passage, stretching almost 60 feet, that leads to a cruciform chamber capped by a corbelled stone roof. Remarkably, this roof has remained watertight for over 5,000 years, without the use of mortar or modern adhesives. The precision of its construction raises a question that has echoed across centuries. How could Neolithic people, with simple tools and no written language, create something so enduring, so perfectly aligned with the forces of nature? For Newgrange is not just a tomb. It is, in many ways, a clock made of stone. On the morning of the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the rising sun pierces a small opening above the entrance, known as the roof box. A beam of light enters the passage and travels slowly down its length, illuminating the inner chamber with golden rays. For 17 minutes, once a year, the tomb becomes a theater of light, a perfect alignment between earth and sky. Was this astronomical precision a coincidence, or the result of careful observation spanning generations? To align a structure so flawlessly with the winter solstice suggests a deep understanding of the cycles of the heavens. And yet, no written records remain from the builders to tell us how, or why, they achieved it. Mainstream explanations suggest that Newgrange was a burial site, a place where the dead were interred and honored. Fragments of human bones, along with offerings of beads, pendants, and tools, have been discovered within its chambers. The solstice alignment, in this view, may have symbolized rebirth, a promise that light would always return after the darkness of winter. Perhaps, for its builders, Newgrange was a bridge between the living and the dead, the temporal and the eternal. But other interpretations go further. Some researchers argue that the tomb was not merely a burial place, but a temple, an ancient observatory that allowed Neolithic people to track the passage of time, to mark the changing seasons, and to regulate agricultural life. Could this alignment have been used to predict planting and harvesting cycles, ensuring the survival of communities in a harsh climate? And yet, the mysteries deepen. The enormous stones used in its construction were not quarried locally. Some were transported from mountains nearly 50 miles away, across rivers and rugged terrain. How were these multi-ton slabs moved, without wheels, without beasts of burden? The logistical challenge alone seems staggering. Even more enigmatic are the intricate carvings etched into the stones. Spirals, triple spirals, zigzags, and circles repeat in patterns that seem deliberate, as if encoding a language long forgotten. Some believe these are abstract decorations, expressions of Neolithic art. Others suggest they represent maps of the stars, lunar cycles, or even psychedelic visions induced during rituals. Could these carvings be a kind of prehistoric code, one we have yet to decipher? Speculative theories push the boundaries further still. A few fringe researchers propose that Newgrange was a site of energy manipulation, designed to harness the Earth's natural forces. They point to the quartz facade and the mica found within, materials known to interact with light and energy. Was Newgrange built not just as a tomb or temple, but as a kind of power center, a place where ritual, astronomy, and the natural world converged in ways we no longer understand? Others whisper of connections to ancient myths. In Celtic lore, Newgrange was said to be the home of the god Dagda and the birthplace of Oengus, the god of love. Legends describe it as a portal to the otherworld, a place where mortals could enter and commune with deities. Was the solstice light meant to illuminate more than stone walls? Could it have been intended as a message to the gods themselves? And then there is the most haunting question of all. Why was so much knowledge lost? The people who built Newgrange left no written records, no detailed blueprints, no preserved oral histories. They created a monument that has endured for millennia, yet their voices have vanished into silence. Standing inside the passage during the solstice, bathed in the same light that touched its builders thousands of years ago, one cannot help but feel a profound connection across time. The stones seem to speak in whispers, but their meaning remains just beyond reach. Was Newgrange the culmination of generations of observation and ritual, or does it hint at a forgotten science, a technology we cannot yet comprehend? As we leave the Boyne Valley and its enduring monument behind, the questions linger. What inspired a Neolithic people to raise such a structure, so precise, so lasting? Was it faith, necessity, or something more? And if secrets still lie buried beneath the soil of Ireland, waiting to be uncovered, what might they reveal about the hidden capabilities of humanity's distant past? Beneath the scorching sun of the Nubian desert, far from the fertile banks of the Nile, lies a place few travelers ever encounter. The wind carries sand across a barren plain, where scattered stones protrude from the earth like the remnants of some long-forgotten ceremony. This is Nabta Playa, a dried lake bed in southern Egypt, near the border with Sudan. Here, in the middle of what now seems like an unforgiving wasteland, stand the remains of one of the world's earliest and most enigmatic stone circles. At first glance, the stones appear modest, nothing like the towering grandeur of the pyramids or the megaliths of Stonehenge. Yet, appearances can deceive. Arranged in deliberate patterns, these weathered rocks suggest a level of sophistication that predates the Egyptian pharaohs by millennia. Some researchers date the construction of the Nabta Playa stone circle to around 4800 BC, nearly 2,000 years before Stonehenge rose on the plains of Britain. If true, this would make it one of the world's oldest known astronomical monuments. But why here, in a place where life today seems so inhospitable? To answer that, we must imagine a different landscape. Thousands of years ago, this desert was not barren. Seasonal rains transformed the playa into a fertile basin, where nomadic peoples gathered, herded cattle, and performed rituals. Archaeological excavations reveal hearths, pottery, and even evidence of animal burials, suggesting that Nabta Playa was not just a practical campsite, but a place imbued with symbolic meaning. At the center of the stone arrangement lies a small circle of upright slabs, some carefully aligned with the rising and setting sun during the summer solstice. Others appear to mark the positions of stars, including Orion and Sirius. This precise orientation has led many to believe that Nabta Playa functioned as a kind of prehistoric observatory, a calendar carved from stone to track the cycles of the heavens. Could this be the earliest attempt by humans to link their lives to the rhythms of the cosmos? Mainstream archaeologists interpret the site as a remarkable achievement of early pastoral societies. These communities, moving with their herds across the shifting landscape, would have relied heavily on an accurate understanding of the seasons. Knowing when the rains might return or when drought would grip the land could mean the difference between survival and starvation. The stone circle, then, may have been both a ritual center and a practical tool, an ancient way of predicting the passage of time. And yet, questions linger. The stones themselves are not enormous, but some were transported from quarries miles away. How did these early peoples move them across the desert? What rituals took place within this circle of rock? And most puzzling of all, how could nomadic herders, without writing, without metal tools, achieve such precise astronomical alignments thousands of years before the rise of Egyptian civilization? Some scholars argue that Nabta Playa represents the seedbed of ideas that would later flourish along the Nile. The reverence for cattle, the symbolic role of celestial events, and the architectural use of stone all echo in later Egyptian culture. Could the builders of Nabta Playa have been the distant cultural ancestors of those who raised the pyramids and aligned temples with the sun and stars? Other theories reach further still. The alignment of certain stones to Orion's belt, a constellation linked in many cultures to myth, death, and rebirth, has inspired speculation about a deeper, perhaps even universal, human connection to the stars. Was Nabta Playa part of a broader prehistoric tradition, an early chapter in humanity's long fascination with mapping the heavens onto the earth? More fringe perspectives suggest the possibility of lost civilizations. Could an advanced culture, predating the pharaohs, have left behind this cryptic marker in the desert? Supporters of this view point to the sophistication of the site and question whether nomadic cattle herders alone could have engineered such precision. Some even wonder if the stones might encode knowledge of the precession of the equinoxes, a concept modern astronomy only rediscovered thousands of years later. Then there are those who ask if Nabta Playa might hold an even stranger significance. The desolate setting, the careful alignments, and the ritual deposits of cattle bones have led some to view the site as a sacred landscape, a place where the earthly and celestial worlds intersected. Could these stones have been more than a calendar? Might they have been a gateway of sorts? A symbolic threshold between life and death, time and eternity? And yet, for all the speculation, Nabta Playa remains silent. The desert has preserved its stones, but erased the voices of those who raised them. Unlike the pyramids, there are no inscriptions, no carvings, no records to explain what the builders believed or hoped to achieve. What survives is only the stark geometry of stone against sand, a puzzle without a key. Today, as the sun sets across the horizon, its light still brushes the edges of the ancient circle, just as it did nearly 7,000 years ago. The stones cast long shadows across the playa, as if keeping watch over a secret known only to those who once gathered here. What compelled them to choose this spot? What stories did they tell beneath these very skies? And what else might still lie buried beneath the sands, waiting to be uncovered? Perhaps Nabta Playa is a reminder that the desert, for all its silence, is never empty. It holds within it the memory of forgotten peoples and the whisper of mysteries we have only begun to glimpse. Standing among these stones, one cannot help but wonder, did the builders simply seek to mark the turning of seasons, or were they reaching for something far greater, an eternal dialogue with the stars? Beneath the dense jungles and fertile plains of southern Mexico, scattered across the ancient lands of Veracruz and Tabasco, rise enigmatic monuments unlike anything else in the ancient world. Massive stone faces, carved with remarkable detail, gaze out into the horizon as though frozen in time. They are the colossal heads of the Olmec civilization, giant basalt sculptures, some weighing up to 40 tons, their expressions solemn, their craftsmanship both powerful and refined. To encounter one of these heads in person is to stand before a mystery carved in stone. The sheer scale commands attention. Lips broad noses and piercing eyes are etched into the basalt with a precision that seems out of place in a society often described as pre-classic. Their helmets, resembling protective headgear, hint at warriors or perhaps rulers, though no definitive answer has been found. The stone, cool and dark, feels almost alive, as if holding secrets long forgotten. But these sculptures raise more questions than they answer. Who did they represent? How were they transported across such challenging landscapes? And why did the Olmecs choose to carve their leaders, or their gods, on such a monumental scale? The Olmec civilization, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, flourished between 1500 and 400 BC. They are credited with many firsts: early writing systems, complex religious iconography, and even the ball game that would later define much of Mesoamerican culture. Yet, despite their profound influence, much about them remains unknown. Their colossal heads stand as the most visible and perhaps most puzzling legacy. Each head is unique. The features vary, suggesting they may represent individual rulers rather than generic figures. Some scholars point to the elaborate helmets as evidence of a ceremonial ball game where such headgear might have been worn. Others argue the helmets signify warrior status. But then, a deeper question emerges. Why dedicate such immense labor to immortalize these figures in stone? Transporting the basalt alone borders on the impossible. The material was quarried in the Sierra de los Tuxtlas Mountains, as far as 60 miles away from where the heads now rest. Without beasts of burden, without the wheel in practical use, and across swampy terrain, how did the Olmecs achieve this feat? Some suggest rolling the stones on logs. Others imagine rafts carrying them along rivers. Yet both explanations strain under the sheer weight and distance involved. Could there have been techniques lost to history? Methods of transport and engineering that we no longer understand? The craftsmanship, too, raises questions. The heads were not crudely chiseled. Instead, they display an understanding of proportion, symmetry, and artistic detail that speaks to a highly skilled class of artisans. Tools of stone and sand would have been the primary means of carving basalt, one of the hardest natural stones on Earth. The time, labor, and coordination required to shape a single head must have been immense. Was this labor an act of devotion, a display of centralized power, or something else entirely? Beyond these practical puzzles lie the more speculative questions. The faces themselves, with their broad features and distinct expressions, have fueled debate for decades. Some researchers insist they are clear depictions of Olmec rulers, their helmets symbolizing authority. Others, however, point out the striking diversity of facial features, suggesting influences, or even presences, from beyond Mesoamerica. Could the Olmecs have been in contact with distant cultures across the seas? Or are these interpretations simply projections, shaped by modern imagination? Adding to the mystery, the colossal heads were often found buried. They were not always left standing in public plazas, as one might expect. Some appear to have been deliberately interred, their massive forms hidden beneath layers of earth. Was this an act of reverence? A way to ritually retire the image of a leader once his reign ended? Or was there a deeper spiritual purpose, perhaps a belief that the head still held power after being concealed? There is also the question of what the heads truly represented. Were they kings immortalized for eternity? Players of a sacred game elevated to divine status? Or could they have been guardians, silent sentinels meant to protect Olmec cities from unseen threats? Each theory holds fragments of truth, yet none provide the full picture. The broader context of Olmec culture only deepens the enigma. This was a civilization that built ceremonial centers, developed complex calendars, and established far-reaching trade networks. They were not an isolated people, but a sophisticated society whose influence extended into later cultures like the Maya and Aztec. And yet, we have no written records left by the Olmecs themselves to explain their colossal creations. We are left instead with stone faces that do not speak, only stare. As archaeologists continue to uncover more about the Olmec, the colossal heads remain a focal point of fascination. They embody both the genius and the mystery of a people who laid the foundations of Mesoamerican civilization, but whose own story is shrouded in silence. Could it be that the heads were part of a ritual landscape we no longer understand? That their placement, orientation, or burial followed celestial patterns, much like other ancient structures across the world? Or are we simply projecting cosmic meaning onto what may have been political monuments, grand statements of authority in a society ruled by powerful elites? The colossal heads of the Olmec invite us to wonder not only about the people who carved them, but about the limits of our own knowledge. How much of the past is truly lost to time? And how many secrets still lie beneath the earth, waiting to emerge from the jungles of Mexico? Even today, as these monumental faces sit in museums or remain rooted in their original sites, they seem to gaze beyond us, as if holding on to truths we are not yet ready to uncover. Perhaps the Olmec heads are more than works of art, more than political statements. Perhaps they are messages, silent, enduring, and still waiting to be understood. And so the question lingers, heavy as the stone itself. What stories do these colossal faces still hold in their unblinking eyes? High in the lush volcanic landscapes of West Java, Indonesia, lies a hillside that seems ordinary at first glance. Cloaked in dense green vegetation, it rises gently from the surrounding valleys. But as one approaches the summit, the illusion of simplicity fades. The hilltop of Gunung Padang reveals a striking sight: countless rectangular stone columns, stacked and arranged in what appears to be deliberate patterns. Moss creeps across their weathered surfaces, vines wrap themselves around the ancient blocks, and the silence of the place is broken only by the wind that whispers through the trees. To stand here is to stand on a puzzle, a place where earth, stone, and time blur into mystery. For centuries, local communities regarded Gunung Padang as a sacred site, a place of spiritual power. In the Sundanese language, its name translates as Mountain of Enlightenment, hinting at the reverence it commanded long before archaeologists began to study it. At the summit, arranged terraces step upward like the remnants of a forgotten temple, their basalt columns neatly aligned as though placed by human hands. Yet these stones are not scattered randomly. They form walls, platforms, and passageways, architectural features that suggest deliberate design. Traditional dating once placed the structures of Gunung Padang within the Iron Age, no more than a few thousand years old. It was thought to be the work of local cultures building ceremonial terraces, a monument of community and faith. But in recent decades, scientific surveys have raised far more unsettling questions. Beneath the visible terraces, researchers discovered layers of stone that extend deep underground, far deeper than anyone expected. Ground-penetrating radar, core drilling, and seismic tomography have revealed chamber-like anomalies hidden below the hill, as if the visible structures are only the surface of a far more massive construction. Could Gunung Padang be more than just a hillside shrine? Some geologists argue that the site may conceal the world's oldest known man-made pyramid or megalithic structure, perhaps dating back to as early as 20,000 BC. If true, such a discovery would rewrite human history as we know it, pushing the timeline of advanced construction tens of thousands of years further back than current models allow. But how plausible is this? And who could have built it in an era long before agriculture, metallurgy, or written language were thought to exist? Mainstream archaeology urges caution. Many researchers argue that Gunung Padang is primarily a natural volcanic hill, capped by basalt columns that have been rearranged by human hands into terraces and ceremonial spaces. In this view, the anomalies detected underground may not be chambers at all, but natural geological formations, lava flows, fractures, and cavities that mimic the appearance of man-made structures. The idea of a 20,000-year-old pyramid, they say, belongs more to speculation than to science. And yet, questions persist. The basalt blocks at the summit, some weighing hundreds of kilograms, appear to have been transported and carefully placed. Their arrangement is strikingly geometric, almost architectural. Were these stones quarried locally or brought from a distance? How did ancient builders move and align them with such precision on a hilltop surrounded by dense forest and steep slopes? The site has also produced radiocarbon dating results that fuel debate. Some samples of organic material taken from soil beneath the stone structures have suggested ages far older than expected, possibly as early as 12,000 to 20,000 BC. Critics argue that such results may be misleading, reflecting the age of older carbon deposits rather than the structures themselves. Still, the possibility lingers. Could Gunung Padang be evidence of an advanced culture existing in Indonesia long before the rise of Sumer, Egypt, or the Indus Valley? If so, what kind of society could have accomplished such a feat? Did they possess technologies now lost to time? Or does the site speak to a form of organization, ingenuity, and spirituality that we have underestimated in our distant ancestors? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest that Gunung Padang could be linked to myths of a forgotten golden age, perhaps echoes of Atlantis or other lost civilizations. Others propose that it may have served as an astronomical observatory, a ceremonial center, or even a burial place for leaders whose names are now long forgotten. The underground anomalies, still unexcavated, inspire further wonder. Could they conceal chambers filled with artifacts, or are they nothing more than natural voids in volcanic rock? Even among skeptics, there is agreement on one point. Gunung Padang remains enigmatic. Its stones, terraces, and subterranean mysteries resist easy categorization. The debate itself reflects a deeper human impulse to seek meaning in ancient structures, to search for continuity between our past and our present, and to ask whether history is far older and far stranger than we allow ourselves to imagine. As the sun sets over the West Javan hills, the stones of Gunung Padang glow with a golden hue, their sharp edges softened by shadow. Visitors who walk among the terraces often describe a sense of profound stillness, as if the hill itself holds secrets it cannot yet reveal. Is this a sacred shrine built by a relatively recent culture? Or is it the last visible trace of a civilization that flourished in a time so remote it defies our current understanding of human history? For now, the questions outweigh the answers. Excavations continue, debates persist, and the stones remain silent. Perhaps deep within the earth beneath Gunung Padang, the truth is waiting. Or perhaps the mystery itself is the message, reminding us that the past is not fixed, but layered, uncertain, and full of possibilities we have only just begun to uncover. What lies beneath this mountain of enlightenment? A simple hillside shaped by natural forces and human faith? Or a monument that could change everything we think we know about our species' story? The answer remains buried in stone and shadow, inviting us to wonder and to wait. Beneath the sun-scorched skies of Iraq, not far from the banks of the Tigris River, stands a monumental ruin that defies both time and expectation. Rising from the desert floor, the Tak Kasra, also known as the Arch of Ctesiphon, commands the horizon with an almost otherworldly presence. Its massive brick vault towers above the earth, silent yet imposing, a reminder of a civilization that once held sway over much of the known world. Even in ruin, it radiates an aura of grandeur, an architectural feat so bold and ambitious that it continues to puzzle historians and engineers alike. At first glance, the arch appears deceptively simple, a vast curve of baked brick stretching skyward, framing open space like a gateway to another age. But the more closely one studies it, the more impossible it seems. Measuring nearly 120 feet in height and spanning over 80 feet in width, this single continuous barrel vault is the largest of its kind still standing from antiquity. Constructed without steel reinforcement, without modern concrete, without the scaffolding and machinery we would assume necessary, the Saqqara seems to belong to a realm of architectural knowledge that has been lost. How did ancient builders manage to hoist millions of bricks into a curve that still holds firm after more than 1,400 years? History tells us that this arch belonged to the imperial city of Ctesiphon, the heart of the Sasanian Empire, a rival to Rome and Byzantium. Built in the 3rd or 6th century AD, scholars still debate the exact date, it once formed part of a grand palace complex where kings sat upon gilded thrones and armies gathered beneath banners of conquest. In its prime, the vault would have sheltered vast halls, echoing with the footsteps of courtiers and the murmurs of diplomats from across the ancient world. The city itself was a crossroads of cultures, situated along the Silk Road, a place where Persian, Greek, Indian, and Arab influences mingled. Yet even with these details, questions remain. The Sasanian Empire was indeed a powerful force, but did it possess the technological mastery to construct a vault of this scale? Some historians argue that the arch represents the pinnacle of Roman-inspired engineering adapted by Persian architects. Others suggest it was the product of entirely local innovation, a culmination of centuries of brickwork tradition stretching back to Mesopotamia's earliest ziggurats. Still, the problem persists. No other surviving structure from the era matches the audacity or the precision of the Saqqara. If this was truly the work of human hands in late antiquity, why do we not see more like it? Why does it stand alone, unmatched in size and design? The mystery deepens when one considers how the vault was constructed. Archaeologists point out that such an arch would have required either massive scaffolding, impractical with the materials of the time, or ingenious methods of layering bricks in self-supporting patterns, allowing the structure to rise gradually without collapsing under its own weight. But no detailed records survive to reveal the builder's techniques. What we are left with is the finished result, a structure that appears to have leapt into being, as though conjured rather than crafted. And then there is the matter of endurance. For centuries, earthquakes have shaken the ground beneath Iraq. Wars have swept across the land, reducing empires to ashes. Yet the Saqqara remains. Though part of the palace has fallen, the arch itself continues to hold, refusing to yield entirely to gravity or time. Some see this resilience as evidence of masterful engineering, far ahead of its age. Others wonder if secrets of ancient materials, special mortars, lost methods of firing bricks, may have played a role. Could there be forgotten sciences hidden within its walls? Speculation, as always, reaches further. Fringe theories suggest that the arch may not simply be the creation of the Sasanians, but the inheritance of something older, a structure built upon knowledge passed down from civilizations lost to history. Could it be that the Persians expanded upon ruins even they only partly understood? Was Ctesiphon itself layered atop a site with far deeper origins, stretching back to the legendary builders of Mesopotamia? Mainstream scholars remain cautious. They point to the brilliance of Sasanian architects, to the continuity of building traditions, and to the empire's wealth, which would have enabled bold projects. Yet, they also admit that the Saqqara is unique, a singular masterpiece for which no clear precedent exists. In that absence, the door is left open for speculation, for mystery, for wonder. As twilight falls across the ruins, the arch casts a long shadow across the desert floor, its silhouette etched against the fading light. To stand beneath it is to feel the weight of forgotten centuries pressing down, the silence heavy with unspoken stories. What inspired its creation? What methods lifted it skyward? And why, among the countless works of ancient builders, does this one still stand as if daring us to uncover its secret? Perhaps the Tak Kasra is simply a testament to human ingenuity at its highest. Or perhaps it is something more, a fragment of knowledge carried from an age now lost to memory. We cannot say for certain. All we know is that, in the heart of Iraq, a lonely arch continues to whisper of greatness, of mystery, and of the unanswered questions that still linger in the ruins of time. Beneath the sands of Abydos, one of Egypt's most ancient and sacred cities, lies a structure that defies easy categorization. Partially submerged, shrouded in shadows and silence, it is not the great temple of Seti I that first greets the eye, but something far older, hidden just behind it. The Osirion, massive granite blocks, each weighing many tons, rise out of the earth in stark contrast to the more ornate, refined architecture of the surrounding temples. They are simple in shape, yet overwhelming in scale. Some are laid with such precision that the joins are barely visible, as though the stone itself had been poured rather than cut. Walking through its subterranean passageways feels like stepping not into an Egyptian temple, but into another world altogether, one built on principles unfamiliar to the style and craftsmanship of dynastic Egypt. Mainstream archaeology suggests the Osirion was constructed during the reign of Seti I around the 13th century BC. It was likely intended as a symbolic tomb of Osiris, the god of resurrection, tying the pharaoh's reign to the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. Inscriptions on the temple above make reference to Osiris, and the placement of the Osirion within Abydos, a city long associated with his cult, seems to confirm this. To most Egyptologists, the structure was part of a deliberate religious program built under royal command, serving myth and ritual. And yet, the stones tell a more complicated story. Unlike the relatively lightweight sandstone used in Seti's temple, the Osirion is built from red granite and quartzite, materials quarried far away in Aswan, transported over hundreds of miles, then placed with a level of effort and precision that seems disproportionate for what is essentially a symbolic structure. Why use such immovable, colossal blocks for a space that was never meant to be a true burial chamber? Was it simply a show of strength? A statement of eternal permanence? Or was the Osirion something much older, later integrated into the landscape of Seti's temple? This is where the mystery deepens. Some researchers note the stark architectural differences between the Osirion and other temples of the New Kingdom. Its austere, megalithic style, massive blocks, simple forms, subterranean layout, bears little resemblance to the elegant reliefs and towering columns of Seti's era. Instead, it echoes the Cyclopean architecture found in far-off places, the walls of Sacsayhuamán in Peru, the foundations of Baalbek in Lebanon, or even the enigmatic blocks of Puma Punku in Bolivia. Could the Osirion represent an inheritance from a much older civilization, one whose identity has been lost to time? Ancient texts complicate the story further. Abydos was considered by Egyptians to be a gateway to the afterlife, and myths associated with Osiris speak of primordial times, when the gods themselves ruled on earth. Later writers, such as the Greek historian Strabo, described Abydos as a place of immense antiquity. Could the Osirion have been built to honor these deep myths? Or perhaps even by a culture that lived long before Egypt's first pharaohs? Some fringe theories suggest the Osirion could be evidence of a forgotten epic, perhaps even predating the great flood myths found across cultures. Its subterranean construction and water channels, which even today keep the chamber partially submerged, hint at a structure designed to interact with water in some way. Was it a symbolic representation of the underworld, a ceremonial pool, or could it have served a more practical purpose, perhaps even technological in nature? The granite blocks themselves add to this speculation. Granite is rich in quartz, a mineral known to vibrate under certain frequencies. Was its use merely symbolic, chosen for durability and association with eternity? Or might the builders have understood something about its physical properties that we have yet to rediscover? Mainstream archaeology remains cautious. Most Egyptologists argue there is no need to invoke lost civilizations or forgotten sciences. The Osirion was built by Seti I, they insist, and its unusual style was simply a conscious throwback to earlier, archaic traditions meant to evoke Egypt's mythic past. The water, they explain, is the result of a high water table, not design. Its starkness is a matter of taste, not mystery. Yet, for others, the questions linger. Why does the Osirion feel so radically different from the structures around it? Why go to such extraordinary effort for a symbolic tomb, hidden beneath the earth, far from public view? Why does its style seem less like a product of Seti's age and more like a relic of something far older? Standing inside the Osirion, surrounded by its immense stone pillars and the quiet sound of water lapping at their bases, one cannot help but feel transported back to a time beyond history. It evokes not just the grandeur of Egypt's past, but the possibility of an even deeper story, one written in stone, submerged in mystery, and left for us to ponder. Perhaps the Osirion is exactly what Egyptologists say it is, a bold experiment in archaic design meant to anchor Seti's reign to the timeless myth of Osiris. Or perhaps it is something older, an inheritance from a forgotten chapter of human civilization, preserved not in writing but in stone. We are left with a haunting question. Was the Osirion truly a product of the New Kingdom? Or is it a window into an age we have yet to remember? Beneath the scorching Egyptian sun, on the small island of Elephantine in the Nile River, lies a structure that appears deceptively simple, yet, upon closer inspection, reveals layers of mystery that rival some of the greatest enigmas of the ancient world. Carved deep into stone and descending into the earth, the Elephantine Nilometer is both a marvel of precision engineering and a puzzle that refuses to give up all its secrets. At first glance, it is little more than a staircase, winding downward into a channel of the Nile. Its stone steps, worn smooth by centuries of use, disappear into darkness where the waters once rose and fell. Measuring rods are etched along its sides, marking heights with exacting care. For modern eyes, it might look like nothing more than an ancient measuring tool, yet, in reality, it was far more than that. For thousands of years, the Nile was the lifeblood of Egypt. Its annual floods brought rich silt to the farmland, ensuring crops could grow and civilizations could flourish. Too little water meant famine, too much meant destruction. The Nilometer was, in essence, a tool for survival, an early scientific instrument designed to predict prosperity or catastrophe. By studying the water level during inundation, priests and officials could calculate harvest yields, levy taxes, and even determine whether a year would be marked by abundance or by scarcity. Mainstream Egyptologists tell us that the Elephantine Nilometer, in particular, was one of the most important of these devices, built during the New Kingdom and refined in later periods. Its construction is attributed to the reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep III in the 14th century BC, though some scholars suggest it may be even older. The stairway descends nearly 52 feet, with niches and markers carefully placed to correspond to expected water levels. This was not a mere guesswork tool. It was a scientific instrument of extraordinary accuracy, designed centuries before modern hydrology. But here, the mystery deepens. How could a civilization over 3,000 years ago design a system so precise that, even by today's standards, its functionality borders on perfection? The measurements etched into its walls are not haphazard. They are calculated with an understanding of both the Nile's behavior and the geometry required to record it. Who determined such exact thresholds? And more importantly, was the Nilometer only about water levels, or was it something more? Some researchers believe the Nilometer was linked directly to Egypt's spiritual and political power. The priests who controlled it could, in essence, predict the future. To the average farmer, the priesthood's ability to foresee famine or prosperity would have seemed divine. The tool thus became more than an instrument of science. It was an instrument of authority. Knowledge of the Nile's secrets meant control over Egypt itself. Others suggest the Nilometer's significance goes even deeper. Certain architectural features appear to have astronomical alignments, as if the stairway and its markings were not only measuring the Nile but also tied to cycles of the heavens. Could the Nilometer have served a dual purpose, as both a hydrological device and a ritual calendar? Was it a bridge between the earthly rhythms of the river and the cosmic patterns of the stars? And then, there are more speculative voices. Some argue that the precision of the Nilometer suggests knowledge passed down from an even earlier, perhaps forgotten civilization. Could this structure be a remnant of wisdom inherited from an advanced culture that predated dynastic Egypt? If so, who were they, and how much of their knowledge filtered through into the temples and priesthoods that followed? The very choice of Elephantine Island raises questions as well. Located near the first cataract of the Nile, it was a place of both strategic and spiritual significance. It marked a natural boundary between Egypt and Nubia, and it was believed to be home to Khnum, the ram-headed god of the Nile's source. By building the Nilometer here, were the Egyptians simply measuring water, or were they situating their device at a sacred point where the earthly and the divine intersected? Walking down its steps today, one can imagine the rituals that must have unfolded within its walls. The slow descent into the cool darkness, the echo of footsteps, the glimmer of torchlight against ancient stone. At the bottom, where the waters lapped and receded, priests once measured the future of an empire. Their pronouncements could bring hope or despair, obedience or rebellion, and yet, one cannot help but wonder, was the Nilometer truly just a measuring tool? Or was it also a symbol, a carefully crafted monument to the delicate balance between nature, knowledge, and power? Some theorists propose that its design carries hidden geometries, possibly linked to sacred numbers found in temples and pyramids. Was there an encoded wisdom here, meant for those initiated into deeper mysteries? Mainstream explanations hold firm. The Nilometer was simply a practical device, brilliantly conceived but fully understandable. Yet, like so many ancient structures, it leaves room for doubt. Its survival across millennia, its precision, and its role in blending science, politics, and spirituality hint at a sophistication that still challenges modern understanding. As we look upon its worn steps today, silent and empty, the questions remain. How much of Egypt's greatness was rooted in structures like this, quiet instruments hidden in plain sight, yet shaping the fate of millions? What secrets may still be buried beneath the Nile's shifting waters, waiting to be rediscovered? Perhaps the true mystery of the Elephantine Nilometer lies not only in what it measured, but in what it represented. The convergence of water, stone, and human ambition. A reminder that the ancients, in their quest to understand the world, often built more than mere tools. They built enigmas, structures that whisper across time, daring us to listen. Deep in the heart of the Guatemalan rainforest, where thick vegetation muffles sound and the cries of distant howler monkeys echo through the canopy. Towers of stone rise unexpectedly above the treetops. These are the monumental structures of Tikal, an ancient Maya city whose temple pyramids still command awe despite having stood for more than a millennium. From a distance, the temples resemble colossal stone mountains piercing the greenery, their stepped profiles silhouetted against the sky. Up close, the sheer scale is overwhelming, vertical walls of limestone rising hundreds of feet, capped with shrines that once touched the heavens. This is not merely an archaeological site, it is a city of giants, hidden for centuries by the jungle and rediscovered only in the modern era. Today, as the wind carries the scent of damp earth through the plazas, one cannot help but feel the weight of time pressing in, reminding us that these stones have outlasted their builders and continue to guard their secrets. Mainstream archaeology explains that Tikal flourished between 200 and 900 AD, during what is considered the classic period of Maya civilization. At its height, it was home to tens of thousands of people and served as a major political, economic, and religious center. The city was adorned with monumental pyramids, palaces, and causeways, all built with remarkable precision. Temple 1, also known as the Temple of the Great Jaguar, soars over 150 feet, while Temple 4 reaches nearly 230 feet, making it one of the tallest pre-Columbian structures in the Americas. Yet, as impressive as these accomplishments are, they invite deeper questions. How did the Maya, without metal tools, draft animals, or wheeled transport, raise such massive blocks of limestone and stack them into towering pyramids that still stand today? The limestone was quarried locally, but the sheer manpower and organizational skill required to cut, move, and assemble it remains astonishing. The alignment of the temples adds another layer of complexity. Many are oriented to astronomical events, the solstices, equinoxes, and the risings of Venus, all incorporated into the very blueprint of the city. Was this merely a reflection of the Mayas' deep astronomical knowledge, or was it part of a greater, perhaps more mysterious design? Walking through the complex, one also notices the acoustics. In the Great Plaza, a simple clap of the hands can bounce back in a resonant echo, sometimes resembling the chirp of a sacred bird, the quetzal. Was this an accidental feature of the architecture, or did the Maya intentionally design their temples to carry sound in such a way, amplifying rituals and chants during ceremonies? The question lingers, suggesting a sophistication that went beyond mere construction. Some archaeologists argue that Tikal was sustained through a delicate balance of water management systems, reservoirs, canals, and catchments designed to gather and preserve rainwater. The Maya understood that in a land where rivers were scarce, survival depended on mastering the seasonal cycles of rainfall. But the engineering of these systems is as fascinating as the pyramids themselves. Excavations reveal carefully plastered reservoirs capable of storing millions of gallons, lined with materials that minimized seepage. How did an ancient society, often dismissed in the past as primitive, achieve such precision in hydraulics? Then there are the unexplained elements that fuel speculation. Ancient inscriptions hint at dynasties, wars, and alliances, but much remains undeciphered. Some glyphs reference events tied to celestial cycles so long and complex that even today's astronomers are startled by their accuracy. Could a civilization without telescopes or advanced instruments truly have charted the heavens with such precision? Beyond the orthodox explanations lies the realm of fringe theories. Some suggest that the Maya inherited knowledge from an older, perhaps lost civilization, one that predates even the rise of Tikal. Others wonder if their advanced understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and timekeeping points to contact with distant cultures, or even something more extraordinary. Such ideas are controversial, yet they persist, in part because the Maya collapse around 900 AD remains one of history's great enigmas. A thriving city, suddenly abandoned, left to the jungle. Was it drought, war, political upheaval, or something else entirely? The mystery deepens when one considers the sheer endurance of the structures. For centuries, the rainforest tried to reclaim Tikal. Roots split stone, vines wrapped around staircases, and yet the pyramids endured, their core masonry so strong that they resisted total ruin. Even modern engineers admit admiration for the resilience of Maya construction. Could we, with all our machines and technology, build monuments meant to last for thousands of years in a humid, invasive jungle? Or is there a hidden principle of design the Maya understood that we have forgotten? As dusk falls over the temples, shadows lengthen across the plazas, and the structures seem to shift in mood. Silent guardians keeping secrets that no amount of excavation has fully revealed. The cries of nocturnal animals replace the chatter of day, and the sense of mystery intensifies. Each temple becomes not just a relic of the past, but a question carved in stone, towering above us with an unspoken challenge. What lies beneath the plazas still buried under centuries of earth? What knowledge remains locked in glyphs yet to be understood? And perhaps most hauntingly, how much of the Maya's wisdom was lost forever when their civilization collapsed, leaving only these silent towers as clues? The Tikal Temple complex stands not only as a monument of human ambition, but as a riddle. It forces us to wonder, did the Maya build these pyramids through ingenuity alone? Or were they guided by knowledge whose origins remain beyond our grasp? The jungle whispers no answers. It merely holds the ruins, as it has for centuries, leaving us to gaze upward at the stone towers and ask the same question the ancients may once have asked themselves: what power, human or otherwise, gave rise to such enduring wonders? Beneath the vast skies of central Mexico, where the highland sun beats down upon a plain stretching into the horizon, lies one of the most enigmatic ancient cities ever built, Teotihuacan. The first impression is one of scale. Stone avenues cut like measured lines across the land, leading to colossal structures that dwarf the human form. The Pyramid of the Sun, rising nearly 200 feet into the air, dominates the landscape, its base measuring wider than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Not far away, the Pyramid of the Moon anchors the northern end of the Avenue of the Dead, a grand boulevard that runs for more than 2 miles, flanked by dozens of platforms and smaller temples. Even in ruin, Teotihuacan feels alive. Its vastness evokes not merely a city, but a carefully orchestrated world, an urban vision carved into stone. And yet, remarkably, no one knows who built it. The name itself, Teotihuacan, was given centuries later by the Aztecs, who stumbled upon the city's abandoned ruins and called it the place where the gods were created. To them, it was already ancient, already steeped in mystery. Archaeologists date its origins to around 200 BC, with its peak flourishing between 100 and 600 AD. At its height, Teotihuacan may have been home to over 100,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in the world. Yet the builders remain nameless. Unlike the Maya, the Zapotec, or other Mesoamerican civilizations, the architects of Teotihuacan left behind no written language that we can decipher, no clear identity etched in stone. So who were they? This silence of history deepens when we look closer at the structures themselves. The Pyramid of the Sun was constructed from millions of tons of volcanic rock and rubble, bound together with a mortar-like substance that has somehow endured the test of time. Its builders aligned the pyramid with astronomical precision. On the day of the summer solstice, the sun sets directly along the pyramid's western face. The entire city, in fact, seems to follow a cosmic blueprint, its grid tilted about 15.5 degrees from true north, believed by some scholars to align with sacred celestial events. What does this alignment suggest? Was Teotihuacan merely a city, or was it designed as a massive, living calendar? Conventional archaeology offers pragmatic explanations. Careful urban planning, advanced but achievable engineering, and a society whose labor force was directed by powerful rulers or priests. Yet, as we dig deeper, questions outpace answers. The tunnels beneath the pyramids reveal another layer of mystery. In 2011, archaeologists discovered a hidden passage beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, lined with walls dusted in shimmering pyrite, giving the illusion of a star-filled sky underground. Chambers at the tunnel's end contained thousands of artifacts, shells from distant oceans, carved statues, and offerings of jade. To the builders, this was not merely a city. It was a cosmic stage, designed to mirror the heavens, and perhaps even to bridge the gap between the living and the divine. And yet, the mystery doesn't end with symbolism. Chemical analysis in some chambers revealed traces of liquid mercury, a substance both dangerous and dazzling. What purpose could it have served in the heart of an ancient pyramid? Was it part of a ritual, a symbolic representation of rivers in the underworld, or something we cannot yet imagine? Speculation abounds. Some researchers suggest that Teotihuacan was designed to represent the cosmos itself, with the Avenue of the Dead symbolizing the Milky Way, and the pyramids acting as earthly embodiments of celestial mountains. Others wonder whether the city's scale and planning hint at knowledge far beyond what we attribute to pre-industrial societies. This line of questioning leads us into more speculative territory. Could the builders of Teotihuacan have possessed technologies or methods now lost to time? Some propose that the city was a hub of energy, its pyramids functioning not only as temples but as amplifiers of natural forces, much like theories about pyramids in Egypt. The abundance of mica sheets, found in certain structures and not native to the region, raises further questions. Mica, resistant to heat and electricity, has applications in modern insulation and electronics. Why would the builders transport tons of it from hundreds of miles away to embed it in their city's walls? Mainstream archaeology suggests symbolic or decorative use. But could there have been more? Was Teotihuacan merely a ceremonial and political capital, or was it also experimenting with forces we barely comprehend today? The city's sudden decline adds yet another layer to its enigma. Around 550 AD, Teotihuacan began to collapse. Its temples were burned, its elite structures destroyed. Some argue it was the result of internal unrest, others that it was environmental stress or external invasion, but the truth remains elusive. By the time the Aztecs arrived centuries later, the once great city was long abandoned, left to crumble under the weight of mystery. Standing today atop the Pyramid of the Sun, one can gaze across the Avenue of the Dead toward the distant mountains and imagine the city in its prime. Smoke rising from kitchens, markets bustling with trade, priests conducting rituals under the watch of the stars. But what knowledge, what secrets, what identities were lost when its people vanished? Could Teotihuacan hold keys to an ancient understanding of the cosmos, of energy, of engineering techniques far beyond what we credit to early civilizations? Or is its silence meant to remind us of the fragility of human achievement, that even the grandest cities can vanish into obscurity, leaving more questions than answers? The stones remain, as silent witnesses, and perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. High in the Peruvian Andes, where the Cordillera Blanca cuts sharp lines against the sky, lies a site shrouded in mist and myth. At first glance, Chavin de Huántar seems like a silent ruin. Stone walls weathered by centuries, stairways leading to nowhere, plazas where the voices of a forgotten people once echoed. But beneath this surface, hidden from the casual eye, lies a labyrinth, an intricate maze of underground corridors, chambers, and passageways carved into the mountain itself. Here, light barely enters, sound bends in strange ways, and the air carries an unmistakable sense of mystery. Archaeologists date Chavin de Huántar to around 900 BC, making it one of the earliest and most influential ceremonial centers in the Andes. It served as the heart of the Chavin culture, a place where pilgrims from distant valleys would journey to seek spiritual connection, political alliances, or perhaps even answers to cosmic questions. At its center stands the Lanzon, a massive carved monolith hidden deep within the labyrinth, its surface etched with intricate motifs blending human, animal, and supernatural features. For those who entered these darkened tunnels, the Lanzon was more than stone. It was a living oracle, a channel between the earthly and the divine. But how, in such an early era, did the Chavin people design and construct such a complex network? The subterranean galleries span hundreds of meters, featuring ventilation shafts, precise drainage systems, and acoustic properties that still puzzle researchers today. The stone blocks are fitted with an attention to detail suggesting not only engineering skill, but also an understanding of sensory manipulation. Inside, the labyrinth was not simply functional, it was theatrical. Consider the acoustics. When conch shell trumpets, known as pututus, were played within the galleries, their deep, resonant tones reverberated through the stone, creating an overwhelming soundscape that could disorient and awe. Pilgrims wandering the tunnels, guided only by flickering torches and echoing chants, would have felt transported beyond the ordinary world. Was this by design? Many scholars believe the labyrinth was an instrument of controlled experience, a stage for rituals meant to transform the mind and spirit. Still, certain questions remain. The Chavin left no written records. Their system of beliefs, their rituals, and their intentions must be pieced together from carved symbols, scattered artifacts, and the silent stones themselves. Some researchers propose that the labyrinth represented the underworld, a symbolic journey of death and rebirth. Others see it as a means of sensory deprivation and manipulation, a controlled environment where chosen initiates could be reshaped by sacred visions. And yet, the unexplained elements invite speculation beyond the accepted frameworks. Why such precision in the tunnel's construction, far beyond what simple shelter or storage would require? Why the deliberate control of light and sound, features so advanced that modern archaeologists often compare them to experimental architecture? Could the Chavin have been experimenting with the human mind itself centuries before psychology or neuroscience existed? Even more intriguing are the symbols. The Lanzon, with its fierce feline features, serpent hair, and crossed fangs, seems to merge multiple beings into one, a creature existing between worlds. This fusion of animal and human is repeated throughout Chavin iconography. Was this an artistic expression of shamanic transformation, or does it hint at something deeper, an encounter with realities that remain invisible to us? The Chavin were not an isolated culture. Their influence spread across the Andes, shaping artistic styles, religious practices, and even political structures in distant communities. But why did their central monument, Chavin de Huántar, focus so heavily on subterranean design, unlike many other ancient cultures that built skyward toward the sun? Was this inversion, this descent into the earth, meant to seek power from below rather than above? Modern excavations continue to reveal more of the labyrinth. New chambers, sealed for centuries, have been uncovered in recent years. Some contain carvings never seen before, while others suggest water once played a central role in rituals. During the rainy season, channels beneath the temple could flood, creating rushing echoes that reverberated through the galleries like the voice of the gods themselves. Imagine standing in total darkness, hearing the earth itself roar around you. How could such an experience not feel supernatural? Fringe theories take the mystery further. Some suggest the labyrinth was more than ritual architecture, it was technology. Could it have been an ancient sound laboratory, designed to manipulate consciousness through resonance? Others hint at even more speculative ideas, lost knowledge, advanced techniques passed down from an earlier civilization, or connections to myths of underworld passages found across the globe. While mainstream archaeology remains cautious, these questions continue to linger, fueled by the silence of the stones. What is certain is that Chavin de Huantar was never an ordinary settlement. It was a destination, a gathering point, a place designed to overwhelm and transform. Its labyrinth was not meant for casual exploration, but for those chosen to experience its mysteries. Each twist and turn, each echoing chamber, was part of a carefully orchestrated journey. And so, we are left to wonder, how much of what occurred within these underground passages can we ever truly recover? Were the Chavin merely skilled engineers and artists, or did they tap into forces, psychological, natural, or perhaps even cosmic, that we are only beginning to grasp? Standing in the shadow of the Andes, the ruins of Chavin de Huantar remain silent, but not empty. Their stones whisper through the corridors of time, inviting us to descend once more into the labyrinth. And as we do, a final question lingers. What secrets still lie hidden in the dark, waiting for discovery, or waiting to remind us that some mysteries were never meant to be solved? The transition from the shadowy corridors of Chavin de Huantar in the Andes leads us far across the subcontinent of South Asia, where another ancient marvel emerges, less known to the world, yet no less enigmatic. In the parched lands of western India, on the island-like plateau of Kutch in Gujarat, lies a site that once held one of the most sophisticated hydraulic systems of the ancient world, the reservoirs of Dholavira. At first glance, the ruins appear as weathered stone outlines, fractured walls rising from a dusty plain, but upon closer inspection, what becomes visible is something far more complex. Massive water tanks, channels, and underground storage chambers, engineered with astonishing precision nearly 4,500 years ago. These reservoirs are not just pits in the ground. They are carefully constructed with masonry walls, stone inlets, and even spillways designed to control the flow of water. Dholavira, one of the major urban centers of the Indus Valley civilization, thrived between 3000 and 1500 BC. While other Harappan cities are remembered for their grids of streets and well-planned drainage, Dholavira stands apart. Here, water was not simply a necessity. It was the very essence of survival in an unforgiving landscape. Unlike the fertile floodplains of the Indus or Saraswati rivers, Dholavira rose in a land where rainfall was sparse, where rivers were seasonal, and where every drop mattered. And yet, against all odds, its builders created an intricate water conservation system that sustained a thriving urban center for centuries. Archaeologists have uncovered no fewer than 16 reservoirs at the site, each meticulously aligned with the city's layout. Some plunge deep into the earth, their sides lined with massive blocks of stone cut and fitted with a skill that suggests advanced engineering knowledge. Steps descend into these reservoirs, as if inviting access even in times of drought. To the modern eye, they resemble a fusion of utility and monumentality, both functional and ceremonial in their presence. But this raises a profound question. How did a civilization, more than 4 millennia ago, in an age without iron tools or advanced machinery, construct such enduring hydraulic works? The masonry blocks are large, often quarried from local rock and transported with unknown methods. The channels that fed the reservoirs harnessed the seasonal flows of rivers like the Manhar and Mansar, guiding water with a precision that rivals many medieval systems. Mainstream archaeology attributes this achievement to the ingenuity of the Harappans. Their society, highly organized and urbanized, clearly valued civic planning. They mastered not only drainage and sewage systems, but also devised methods of rainwater harvesting that remain relevant today. In this sense, the reservoirs of Dolavira are a testament to human adaptability and foresight, proving that necessity has always been the mother of invention. And yet, as is often the case with ancient wonders, not everything is easily explained. Some reservoirs are built with a level of uniformity and accuracy that seems difficult to reconcile with the tools of the era. The fitting of massive stone blocks, smooth and straight-edged, invites comparison to other megalithic traditions across the globe. Could these similarities be coincidental? Or do they hint at some shared or forgotten knowledge of stoneworking techniques? Even more intriguing is the scale of ambition. Why construct such a vast and elaborate water system, far beyond what might have been required for basic survival? Was it merely practical, a response to the harsh climate of Kutch? Or did these reservoirs serve a deeper, perhaps symbolic function, part of a ritual landscape where water held spiritual as well as material significance? Some researchers propose that Dolavira's reservoirs may have doubled as ceremonial tanks, places where water was not only preserved but sanctified. The great stadium and other public spaces of the city suggest that collective gatherings and rituals were central to Harappan life. Water, controlled and stored in monumental structures, may have carried meanings we can no longer fully grasp. Fringe theorists, however, push the mystery further. They point to the precision stonework, the resemblance to later stepwells of India, and even to similarities with far-off civilizations that also revered water and built megalithic reservoirs. Could Dolavira be a surviving fragment of an even older, lost tradition of engineering, one that predates the Indus Valley itself? Was this knowledge independently developed or transmitted across vast distances by cultural connections we have yet to uncover? Adding to the enigma is the fact that the Harappan script remains undeciphered. Without written records, we can only infer purpose and meaning from stone, soil, and ruins. No inscriptions tell us how the reservoirs were conceived, who oversaw their construction, or whether they were tied to myths, rituals, or cosmologies. The silence of the stones leaves room for speculation, and perhaps that is why Dolavira continues to fascinate us. Today, standing beside these immense dry basins, one cannot help but feel a strange mix of awe and melancholy. Once, they brimmed with life-giving water, sustaining one of the world's earliest great civilizations. Now they lie empty, carved into the earth like forgotten scars. What stories might they have told had they not outlasted their people? As we look upon Dolavira's reservoirs, we are left with questions that stretch beyond archaeology. How much did the Harappans truly know about hydrology and engineering? Were they simply practical innovators, or heirs to a deeper, more ancient knowledge that has since been lost? The ruins whisper possibilities but never give answers. And so the reservoirs of Dolavira stand, silent yet eloquent, asking us to reconsider the limits of ancient ingenuity and to wonder what else remains hidden beneath the dust of forgotten civilizations. Beneath the relentless Egyptian sun, the sands of Giza stretch endlessly, their golden grains shifting with each whisper of desert wind. Rising from this timeless landscape, the Great Sphinx looms, a colossal figure carved directly into the limestone bedrock. Its enigmatic face, half-worn by millennia of erosion, gazes toward the east, as if forever guarding the plateau. Around its massive paws and weathered body lie traces of something even more subtle, yet equally compelling, quarrying marks etched into the very stone from which the monument was hewn. At first glance, these shallow cuts and grooves appear ordinary, mere remnants of tools and techniques used by ancient workers. But a closer look reveals a puzzle that refuses to yield simple answers. The marks vary in depth, direction, and precision. Some appear consistent with hand chisels, while others curve smoothly as though cut by an unknown method far more refined. What tools, one might ask, could leave behind such unusual impressions on solid limestone more than 4,000 years ago? Mainstream archaeology offers an explanation rooted in history and logic. The Sphinx is generally attributed to the reign of Pharaoh Khafra during the 4th dynasty, around 2500 BC. The prevailing theory holds that teams of laborers, skilled stoneworkers supported by a vast workforce, used copper chisels, dolerite pounding stones, and sheer determination to carve both the monument and the trench that surrounds it. The quarrying marks, therefore, are simply the fingerprints of this immense labor effort, preserved across thousands of years. And yet, doubts persist. Some geologists, notably Dr. Robert Schoch in the 1990s, argued that the erosion patterns on the Sphinx and its enclosure suggest weathering from heavy rainfall rather than mere desert winds and sand. If true, this would push the monument's origins back thousands of years before the accepted dynastic timeline, perhaps to an era when Egypt's climate was lush and wet. If the Sphinx predates the Old Kingdom, then what do the quarrying marks truly represent? Could they point to techniques lost to history, belonging to a civilization that vanished long before the pharaohs? Even within the orthodox framework, the marks raise questions. Some sections of the trench appear astonishingly smooth, as though entire surfaces were leveled with efficiency far beyond that expected of simple pounding stones. In other places, the grooves align in ways that hint at systematic planning, cutting channels as if to extract blocks for other monuments. Scholars note that massive blocks of limestone used in nearby temples may have originated from this very excavation site. Yet here lies the puzzle. The precision of block removal and the sheer scale of the task seem almost excessive for copper tools. How many decades of labor would have been required? Alternative theories, though speculative, have emerged to fill the silence of unanswered questions. Some researchers suggest that ancient Egyptians may have employed a form of softening agent, natural acids or plant-based solutions, that temporarily weakened the stone, allowing for easier cutting. Others look to more radical ideas, the possibility of advanced stone-cutting technologies, perhaps forgotten over time, or even influences from an older civilization whose knowledge did not survive into the dynastic age. Of course, such ideas remain controversial. There is no definitive evidence of lost machines or chemical formulas hidden in the sands of Giza, but the very existence of these quarrying marks, so visible, so tangible, invites speculation. They remind us that even in one of the most studied archaeological sites on Earth, mysteries remain etched in stone. Standing in the shadow of the Sphinx, one is struck not only by the monument's grandeur, but also by its silence. The grooves and cuts in the limestone do not explain themselves. They simply exist, like a forgotten language inscribed upon the earth. Were they carved in haste by thousands of workers laboring for a king? Or do they whisper of methods and times we have yet to fully grasp? Perhaps the answer lies in a combination of both perspectives. Human ingenuity working at the limits of its tools, coupled with environmental forces that altered the stone in ways we now struggle to interpret. Or perhaps, as some quietly wonder, we are looking at the faint traces of a story far older, one that the official record has yet to acknowledge. As the desert twilight descends, shadows deepen within the quarry walls, and the marks seem to shift in the fading light. They remain there, unchanged yet elusive, as if inviting each generation to return with fresh eyes and renewed questions. Could the Sphinx and the quarrying marks that surround it be more than a monument to a single pharaoh? Could they be fragments of a deeper history still waiting to be uncovered. The Sphinx keeps its secrets, and the quarrying marks offer no clear answers. Instead, they leave us with a lingering question carved as deeply into our imagination as they are into the stone itself. What knowledge did the ancients possess? Knowledge that has slipped, silently, through the cracks of time. The desert sun bears down relentlessly on the village of Abaneri, in the arid state of Rajasthan, India. The air is dry, the landscape rugged, and the earth cracked by centuries of heat. Yet hidden within this unforgiving terrain lies one of the most astonishing architectural achievements of the ancient world. A structure so intricate, so vast, that it seems almost impossible it could have been conceived, let alone executed over 1,000 years ago. This is Chand Baori, the Great Stepwell. At first glance, it appears like an inverted pyramid carved into the earth, a colossal square pit plunging nearly 100 feet deep, lined with an intricate web of staircases descending with geometric precision on 3 sides. Over 3,500 narrow stone steps cascade downward in perfect symmetry, creating a hypnotic pattern that shifts and changes depending on where you stand. It is said that if you lose your concentration while walking, the endless repetitions of stone can disorient you, tricking the eye and leading you astray. The 4th side of the well holds a series of pavilions, galleries, and chambers, spaces once reserved for ritual, rest, and perhaps something more. Built around the 9th century AD, during the reign of King Chanda of the Nikumba dynasty, Chand Baori was designed to harvest water in one of the driest regions of India. It was both practical and sacred. Stepwells such as this provided life-giving water, but they were also places of worship, deeply tied to spiritual rituals, and often dedicated to deities associated with fertility, abundance, and life itself. The very act of descending step by step into the depths was symbolic, a journey from the arid surface into the cool embrace of the earth's hidden waters. From a historical perspective, Chand Baori is considered an extraordinary feat of engineering. The sheer scale of it is staggering. Hundreds of thousands of carved stones, each placed with meticulous precision, forming an interlocking lattice that has survived earthquakes, monsoons, and the shifting sands of time. Even today, its structure remains sound, defying the centuries. Archaeologists and engineers marvel at the logistics of its construction. How, in the 9th century, could workers in this remote desert outpost carve, transport, and assemble such an immense architectural puzzle without mortar, relying only on weight and balance? But as with many ancient structures, the more one looks, the more questions arise. Why was Chand Baori built to such immense proportions? There are hundreds of stepwells scattered across India, but few rival this in size or complexity. Was it purely functional, a reservoir to gather water for the village? Or did it serve another purpose, one now lost to time? Some historians suggest it was a site of ritual cleansing, a temple as much as a well. Others speculate about more esoteric uses, astronomical alignments, or even initiation rituals tied to long-forgotten cults. The stone steps themselves invite curiosity. Their alignment is flawless, their rhythm mesmerizing. To walk down into Chand Baori is to feel as though you are entering a world apart, leaving behind the ordinary realm of earth and sky. Some scholars have suggested the geometry itself may have had symbolic meaning, encoding cosmological principles within its repeating triangular forms. Was Chand Baori not merely a well, but a map of the cosmos, reflected in stone? Then there are the whispers of legends. Local tradition holds that Chand Baori was built not by men, but by spirits. Some say the jinn, beings of smoke and flame from ancient lore, constructed the well in a single night. The legend may sound fantastical, but it reflects a deeper truth. The sheer improbability of human hands alone creating something so vast, so exact, with the tools and techniques available over a millennium ago. Modern engineers, too, puzzle over the site. While it is possible to explain much of Chand Baori's construction through conventional means, skilled stonemasonry, coordinated labor forces, and clever design, some aspects remain elusive. For example, the stonework shows little sign of error. The steps maintain consistency over thousands of repetitions, without significant deviation. In a time without modern measuring tools, how was such accuracy maintained? Was it simply the result of experience, discipline, and generations of craftsmanship? Or might there have been knowledge of techniques now forgotten, methods of quarrying, measuring, and aligning that have not survived the centuries? Comparisons have even been drawn to other mysterious feats of ancient architecture around the world: the massive stone blocks of Punku in Bolivia, the megaliths of Baalbek in Lebanon, the pyramids of Egypt. Each raises a similar question: how did ancient societies, often assumed to have been limited by rudimentary tools, manage to build structures that challenge even our modern capabilities? Chand Baori stands as part of that broader mystery. It is not merely a water reservoir. It is a monument that defies simple explanation. The steps themselves are a riddle, an endless descent into both the earth and into the unanswered questions of history. When you stand at the edge of Chand Baori and look down, the heat of the desert presses against your back. But below, the air cools and shadows stretch across stone. It feels as though you are peering not just into a well, but into another time, an echo of a civilization that achieved wonders we still struggle to comprehend. Why was it built so large? How was it made so precise? And why does it resonate with the same aura of mystery we find in ancient monuments across continents, across cultures, across time itself? Perhaps the answers lie buried in the stones themselves. Or perhaps they have been lost forever, waiting for us to rediscover them. Until then, Chand Baori remains more than a stepwell. It is a descent into mystery. The ocean is calm, its surface reflecting the vastness of the sky. And yet, rising mysteriously from the shallow waters off the island of Pohnpei in Micronesia, lies a labyrinth of stone unlike anything else on Earth. Massive walls of basalt columns, dark, heavy, and angular, emerge from the lagoon like a fortress suspended between land and sea. This is non-model, often called the Venice of the Pacific, a city built upon water, and a puzzle that has haunted historians, archaeologists, and explorers for centuries. Approaching the site, one is immediately struck by its scale. More than 90 man-made islets are linked by a complex network of tidal canals, their dark channels flowing silently between towering stone structures. Some walls rise nearly 30 feet high, each stone weighing several tons. In total, it is estimated that more than 250 million tons of rock were quarried, transported, and stacked to form this watery city. Yet the island of Pohnpei itself offers no clear clue as to how such a monumental task was ever accomplished. Mainstream archaeology tells us that Nan Madol was constructed around 1200 AD, serving as the ceremonial and political center of the Saudalur dynasty. Oral traditions of Pohnpei describe it as the seat of power for rulers who sought to control the island through ritual and authority. The islets were not just residential spaces. They hosted temples, tombs, meeting halls, and even sacred sites where priests performed rituals to maintain order over the island's people. The layout itself appears deliberate, as though designed with cosmic alignment or social hierarchy in mind. But beneath the accepted history, deeper questions emerge. The basalt columns that form Nan Madol were quarried from elsewhere on Pohnpei. Some were transported across rugged terrain, then lifted and set with remarkable precision. Many weigh between 5 and 50 tons each. How could such massive stones have been moved by a culture that left no record of wheels, pulleys, or draft animals? Rafts may have been used to float the stones along the coastline, but skeptics point out that maneuvering such immense weight on open water and then stacking it to such height would challenge even modern engineers. As explorers of the 19th century encountered Non-Model for the first time, many compared it to other megalithic sites across the globe. Some likened its cyclopean walls to those of Sacsayhuamán in Peru, others to the enigmatic structures of Easter Island. Could there be a hidden connection, a shared knowledge or influence across oceans, long before recorded history suggests such contact was possible? The oral traditions of Micronesia themselves add to the mystery. Legends speak of twin brothers, Olosopa and Olosipa, sorcerers who arrived from afar and built the city with the help of supernatural powers. Some accounts say they commanded the stones to float through the air, guided by chants and rituals. While such stories may be seen as myth, they reflect the awe with which later generations regarded a structure they themselves could not fully explain. For others, Nan-Madol raises questions about lost civilizations. Could the city represent remnants of a more ancient, forgotten culture whose engineering knowledge was far ahead of its time? Some have speculated, without firm evidence, that Nan-Madol might be linked to tales of lost lands in the Pacific, including the legendary continent of Mu. The alignment of its canals, its scale, and its sudden abandonment all fuel theories that reach beyond the conventional timeline of human history. Even the abandonment of Non-Madol remains a mystery. The Sodalur dynasty eventually collapsed, replaced by new rulers, but the city was left to fall into ruin. Some traditions claim it was cursed, its rulers' harsh treatment of the island's people leading to rebellion, exile, and decay. Others suggest environmental challenges, such as rising tides or the difficulty of sustaining life in a city built upon stone and sea. Today, the mangroves slowly reclaim its edges, as though nature itself is swallowing a forgotten empire. Walking among its silent ruins, the mind cannot help but wonder, was Nan-Madol truly built with the limited tools we believe existed in 1200 AD? Or does its creation hint at knowledge that has been lost to time? Why do so many cultures across the world, from the Andes to the Pacific Islands, share traditions of megalithic architecture that defies simple explanation? The waters around Nan-Madol remain still, but beneath their surface lies a weight of unanswered questions. The city's stones, silent and immovable, seem to hold secrets that no one has yet unlocked. Was this truly the work of human hands alone, or does it point to something more, an echo of a past we have yet to fully comprehend? Nan-Madol endures as both monument and mystery, rising from the Pacific like a riddle carved in stone. And as the sun sets over its shadowed walls, one is left to wonder how much of our ancient past still waits, silent and submerged, for us to rediscover. Under the blistering sun of the Indus Valley, the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro rise quietly from the dust, an ancient city whose foundations tell a story that still puzzles archaeologists and historians alike. The landscape is dry and cracked, the horizon stretching endlessly in muted shades of sand and stone. Yet here, among the worn bricks and silent streets, lies evidence of a civilization that seemed centuries ahead of its time. At the heart of this mystery is a system of water management so advanced, so carefully engineered, that it challenges assumptions about what humans living nearly 4,500 years ago were capable of achieving. The ruins reveal not just a city, but an organized urban grid. Streets are straight, buildings are aligned, and beneath the very foundations, channels of brick and stone run like veins through the city's body. These are not random ditches or shallow trenches. They form a carefully planned drainage system, one of the oldest known in human history. Covered drains, inspection holes, and precisely laid brickwork suggest that those who built Mohenjo-Daro understood principles of sanitation that would not reappear in many parts of the world until thousands of years later. How did this city, dating to around 2500 BC, achieve such remarkable engineering feats? Each household appears to have had access to private wells, with drains that carried wastewater away into a larger network beneath the streets. These drains, covered with fitted slabs of stone, were easily accessible for cleaning and maintenance, suggesting that the system was not only functional but designed for longevity. To modernize, this level of organization feels astonishingly advanced, resembling the infrastructure of cities built much later in history. The sophistication of Mohenjo-Daro's water management invites comparison to the plumbing systems of Rome, constructed nearly 2 millennia later. Yet here, in the Indus Valley, a city flourished with technology that seemed far beyond its time. It raises a simple but profound question. How did they know? Mainstream historians argue that this was the natural outcome of a highly organized urban society. The Indus Valley civilization, one of the world's earliest urban cultures, was clearly capable of innovation. With a population estimated in the tens of thousands, the need for sanitation and water control would have been pressing. The drainage system, then, was a logical solution to the challenges of dense urban life. But even with this explanation, the sheer scale and uniformity of the system is striking. Every block of the city seems to follow the same plan, as if built according to a single, overarching blueprint. And yet, much about Mohenjo-Daro remains unexplained. No grand palaces dominate the site. No monuments or temples rise above the cityscape. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, where kings and deities loomed large in stone, Mohenjo-Daro seems curiously absent of obvious rulers. The society that built it appears to have focused less on monuments of power and more on the practicalities of daily life: water, sanitation, and shared order. Could it be that their priorities were simply different? Or does this absence suggest we are missing a vital piece of their story? More puzzling still is the question of knowledge. The builders of Mohenjo-Daro not only understood how to manage water, but how to standardize brick production, align streets, and create a city grid with remarkable precision. To achieve this, one would expect evidence of written records or engineering manuals. Yet, while the Indus script has been found etched into seals and tablets, it remains undeciphered. Without the key to their language, the voices of Mohenjo-Daro's engineers remain silent. How much did they know, and how did they learn it? Some researchers suggest that the system reflects a practical genius born of necessity. Others, however, have allowed themselves to wonder. Could there have been influences from older, now forgotten cultures? Was knowledge exchanged through long-distance trade networks stretching into Mesopotamia, Egypt, or even further? The Indus Valley civilization was not isolated. It traded goods as far as the Persian Gulf, and possibly beyond. Could the movement of materials also have carried with it the seeds of advanced engineering knowledge? Then there are the more speculative theories. Some fringe researchers point to the extraordinary precision of the drainage system as evidence of lost knowledge, perhaps even an inheritance from a much older civilization now erased from history. Others suggest that the people of Mohenjo-Daro were in possession of technologies or methods that we have yet to fully understand, possibly linked to natural energy sources or construction techniques unknown to us today. While such ideas remain outside the mainstream, they underline just how much remains unexplained. Adding to the mystery is Mohenjo-Daro's fate. By around 1900 BC, the city was in decline. The reasons remain unclear. Some suggest shifts in the Indus River led to flooding or the drying up of vital water sources. Others point to climate change, disease, or the gradual breakdown of social and political structures. Still, certain theories propose something more dramatic. Archaeological reports once noted signs of sudden destruction, even traces of what some claimed resembled radiation damage. These claims are controversial and heavily debated, with most scholars rejecting them. Yet they linger in the imagination, feeding speculation about whether Mohenjo-Daro's end was more catastrophic than conventional history allows. As we walk today through its empty streets, the silence of Mohenjo-Daro seems almost intentional, as if the city guards its secrets carefully. The carefully laid drains, now dry and filled with dust, whisper of a people who once tamed water with ingenuity that feels startlingly modern. We see the evidence, but we do not fully grasp the mind that conceived it, and so the mystery endures. Was Mohenjo-Daro simply the product of a society whose priorities and intelligence rivaled our own, yet whose voice was lost in time? Or does its sophistication hint at knowledge handed down from a forgotten chapter of human history, one we have only begun to glimpse? The drains still run beneath the ruined streets, silent reminders of questions that remain unanswered. Perhaps, somewhere beneath the dust of the Indus Valley, the truth of Mohenjo-Daro still waits, buried, patient and hidden, waiting for us to uncover what has long been forgotten. Beneath the clear skies of Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, the ancient city of Baalbek rises from the landscape like a monument frozen in time. The air is heavy with history here, an echo of countless civilizations that passed through these fertile plains, leaving behind fragments of temples, walls, and stories. At the heart of this archaeological wonder lies the Temple of Jupiter, once the grand centerpiece of Roman Baalbek. Its towering columns still reach skyward, battered but unbroken, symbols of an age when human ambition seemed boundless. Yet, beneath its ruins lies a foundation that raises far more questions than it answers. The stones upon which this temple rests are among the largest ever used in human construction. Known as the Trilithon, these massive blocks are not simply impressive, they are baffling. Each of the 3 megaliths measures nearly 70 feet in length and weighs an estimated 800 tons. To put that in perspective, a single stone is heavier than a fully loaded Boeing 747. They are fitted together with such precision that even today, a sheet of paper cannot be slipped into the joints. Above them sit additional layers of smaller, though still enormous, stones stacked in deliberate alignment. The scale is so extraordinary that one cannot help but pause in wonder. How did ancient builders move such colossal blocks, let alone lift and position them with apparent ease? Mainstream archaeology provides one possible explanation. The Romans, renowned for their engineering prowess, expanded Baalbek during the 1st century AD, transforming it into a grand sanctuary dedicated to Jupiter, Venus, and Bacchus. They possessed advanced techniques for quarrying, transporting, and positioning heavy stone. Evidence suggests that massive wooden rollers, pulleys, and manpower could achieve feats that seem impossible to us today. But even so, the Trilithon stands apart. No other Roman site employs blocks on such a gargantuan scale. Why then were they used here? And why in the foundations, rather than as decorative features meant to be seen? A short distance from the temple, within the ancient quarry, lies another enigma. The Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a single block partially cut from bedrock, weighing an estimated 1,000 tons. In 2014, archaeologists uncovered yet another, even larger stone beneath it, weighing approximately 1,650 tons, the heaviest stone ever discovered from antiquity. Curiously, these blocks were never moved, as though the project was abandoned mid-task. Were they intended for the temple? And if so, how could such immense masses have been transported? Even with modern cranes, such a feat would present enormous challenges. Here lies the heart of the mystery. Some historians propose that Baalbek was a site of successive construction, its origins reaching back far earlier than the Roman era. According to this view, the Romans may have built their magnificent temple atop an already ancient foundation, one whose purpose and builders are now long forgotten. Could it be that the Trilithon and the great unfinished stones were not Roman at all, but remnants of an earlier civilization, one with techniques or technologies beyond what we typically associate with the ancient world? This speculation has opened the door to more fringe theories. Some researchers suggest that Baalbek's megaliths were positioned using lost forms of mechanical ingenuity, perhaps knowledge of counterweights, levers, or water displacement that has since been forgotten. Others venture into more speculative realms, proposing that Baalbek was once a center of prehistoric power, built by a civilization erased from history. Some even link the site to myths of giants found in Middle Eastern traditions, suggesting that beings of immense stature might have been responsible for moving the blocks. There are also those who connect Baalbek to celestial alignments. The temple complex, they note, sits on a platform that seems to correspond with certain astronomical features, leading to the suggestion that its placement was no accident. Was Baalbek intended not only as a temple, but also as an observatory, or even a kind of gateway between the heavens and the earth? If so, the oversized stones may have had symbolic or ritualistic significance beyond their purely structural role. Yet, despite centuries of investigation, the true reasons remain elusive. The Roman explanation fits well within the known framework of history, yet it struggles to fully account for the sheer magnitude of the Trilithon. The possibility of a pre-Roman origin invites new intrigue, but the absence of definitive evidence leaves it largely in the realm of speculation, and as for the more radical theories, they remain controversial, fascinating but unproven, hovering at the boundary between archaeology and myth. Today, the stones of Baalbek remain silent. They rest where they have stood for millennia, unmoved by time, unmoved by our questions. Travelers stand at their base, craning their necks to see the top, and feel the same sense of awe that must have stirred in ancient hearts. Engineers run calculations, historians pore over texts, and theorists spin possibilities. But the Trilithon holds its secrets close. Why were stones of such unimaginable size chosen? What knowledge did their builders possess that we no longer understand? Were they symbols of power, feats of engineering, or remnants of something far older than Rome itself? Perhaps the answer lies still buried in the earth beneath Baalbek. Or perhaps, like the myths that swirl around it, the truth of the Temple of Jupiter's foundations will forever remain beyond our reach, inviting us to wonder what else the ancient world has yet to reveal. Beneath the vast, wind-swept skies of the Outer Hebrides, where the sea air carries the faint scent of salt and peat, a lonely set of stones rises against the horizon. They stand on the Isle of Lewis, in Scotland, weathered and solemn, their jagged silhouettes cutting into the mist that so often drapes this ancient land. Known as the Callanish Standing Stones, this prehistoric monument is both hauntingly beautiful and deeply enigmatic. At first glance, the stones seem to belong to another world. Arranged in a cruciform pattern with a central stone circle, they extend outward like the rays of some forgotten sun, their gray forms glowing faintly under the shifting light of dawn or dusk. To walk among them is to step back in time, into a landscape where human hands left behind something enduring, yet left us no clear explanation for why. Archaeologists date the construction of Callanish to around 2900 to 2600 BC, making it older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids of Giza. Yet, despite millennia of existence, the monument remains shrouded in mystery. Who placed these stones here, and for what purpose? Was it a temple, a burial site, an astronomical observatory, or something beyond our ability to categorize? Mainstream scholarship points toward a ritualistic or ceremonial function. Excavations around the site revealed traces of human activity, including pottery fragments and evidence of peat buildup that gradually buried the stones over centuries. Some researchers argue that the alignment of the stones corresponds with lunar cycles. Indeed, when viewed from the heart of the circle, certain stones appear to align with the rising and setting of the moon at specific times of its 18.6-year cycle. This has led many to believe that Kallanish served as a kind of ancient lunar observatory, allowing its builders to track celestial rhythms with astonishing precision. But even here, questions linger. Why would Neolithic farmers, living in harsh conditions on a remote island, invest so much effort into moving and erecting massive slabs of Louisian gneiss, some weighing several tons? The stones were quarried locally, but transporting and positioning them with primitive tools would still have demanded extraordinary labor, planning, and purpose. What compelled them to build not just a simple circle, but a complex cruciform arrangement of avenues and rows, echoing patterns that appear strangely deliberate? Legends passed down through generations add another layer of intrigue. Local folklore speaks of giants who once lived on the island, frozen into stone as punishment for refusing to convert to Christianity. Others whisper that the stones were placed by druids, though this attribution, common to many stone circles, remains more myth than fact. Some storytellers claim the stones were meant as markers for a shining one, a figure who would walk the avenue of stones during the midsummer dawn. These tales, though poetic, only deepen the sense of enigma. Astronomers and archaeoastronomers have studied Kallanish extensively. Some believe the monument was designed to mark lunar standstills, the rare moments when the moon rises and sets at its extreme northern and southern positions on the horizon. If true, this would make Kallanish not just a local ritual site, but part of a broader prehistoric tradition of sky watching, suggesting a deep connection between human spirituality and celestial cycles. Could this knowledge have been shared across great distances, linking monuments from Britain to other ancient cultures? More speculative theories push the boundaries further. Some suggest that the stones may encode advanced astronomical knowledge lost to time. Others wonder if Kallanish is but one node in a network of prehistoric sites scattered across the British Isles, all aligned with stars, solstices, and lunar cycles in ways we have yet to fully decipher. Could the builders have possessed a worldview, an understanding of time and space, that modern science has overlooked? Fringe interpretations go even further, suggesting connections to ancient seafaring civilizations or even extraterrestrial contact. These ideas often point to the sheer scale of effort and the precision of the alignments, asking whether Neolithic farmers could have achieved such feats without guidance. While such theories remain outside mainstream scholarship, their persistence speaks to the sense of awe the site inspires. Standing amid the stones, one cannot help but feel the weight of time pressing in from all sides. The gneiss, formed nearly 3 billion years ago, was shaped into this arrangement by human hands nearly 5,000 years ago. Every stone has stood through storms, wars, and the endless march of centuries. Yet despite the endless study, Kallanish resists explanation. Is it possible that we are asking the wrong questions? That the builder's intentions may not fit neatly into categories of observatory or temple? Perhaps the stones were many things at once: sacred gathering places, ceremonial markers, astronomical tools, and communal spaces. Or perhaps their meaning is forever lost, locked away in a world view we can no longer access. And still, the stones endure. They watch silently as the winds whip across the moorlands, as sheep graze around their bases, as visitors stand in quiet wonder beneath their towering forms. The monument is both solid and elusive, rooted in the earth yet pointing toward the heavens. So what is Kallanish? A relic of a forgotten religion? A map of the skies? A message carved in stone by people whose voices we will never hear? Or something beyond our imagination, waiting for us to rediscover its true purpose? the mystery remains, drawing us back again and again. In the silence between the stones, as the moon rises over the Hebridean horizon, one cannot help but wonder, what knowledge did the ancients possess that we have lost, and what secrets still sleep beneath the peat and soil, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves? Beneath the dry valleys of northern Peru, where the land is marked by windswept ridges and pale, cracked earth, lies a place that seems to defy time itself. Here, in the Casma Valley, archaeologists uncovered what is now considered one of the oldest ceremonial structures in the Americas, the sunken plaza of Sechin Bajo. At first glance, the site does not overwhelm with towering stones or monumental facades, but rather with its silence, an ancient circle carved into the ground, where stone walls enclose a hollow space that seems to pull the imagination inward. Standing there, one cannot help but sense the weight of millennia pressing down, as though the plaza were holding secrets too vast to reveal all at once. Mainstream archaeology dates Sechin Bajo back to around 3500 BC, placing it among the oldest known centers of monumental architecture in the New World. Long before the rise of the Incas, before the Nazca lines were etched into the desert, and even before the pyramids of Egypt were raised in stone, the builders of Sechin Bajo were already shaping massive ceremonial complexes in this arid land. The sunken plaza, with its precisely arranged walls and central space, hints at a society that possessed not only engineering skill, but also a deeply rooted ritual or cosmological vision. But what exactly was that vision? The plaza's design is striking in its simplicity and symmetry. A perfect circle dug into the earth, surrounded by stone walls, with a central stairway leading downward into what must have been the heart of their ceremonies. Standing on the edge of the circle, one can imagine processions of people descending, carrying offerings, or perhaps gathering to listen to chants that echoed against the stone. The acoustics of such a space would have amplified sound, turning a human voice into something otherworldly. Could this have been the purpose? An attempt to bridge the divide between the human and the divine? Archaeologists suggest that these plazas were centers of communal life, where rituals tied to agriculture, fertility, and the cycles of nature were performed. The Casma Valley, though dry, is nourished by rivers that flow from the Andes, creating fertile oases in the desert. The people who lived here depended on these rivers for survival, and perhaps the sunken plaza symbolized a descent into the underworld, a ritual journey to ensure that water and life itself would continue to flow. In this interpretation, Sechin Bajo was not merely an architectural achievement, but a prayer in stone. Yet, as with so many ancient structures, the explanations do not end with the conventional. The sheer antiquity of Sechin Bajo raises questions that remain unresolved. How did such early societies organize themselves to construct monumental architecture on this scale? What knowledge of geometry, astronomy, or ritual practice did they possess, and where did it come from? Some researchers argue that the precision and early date of the plaza suggest a level of social and cultural development far more advanced than what traditional timelines of human civilization allow. Intriguingly, the sunken plaza is not alone. Across the Andean region, similar circular plazas appear, at Corral, at Chavin de Huantar, and at other sites scattered through Peru. Were these independent inventions, or do they point to a shared cultural blueprint that spread across vast distances? And if they were connected, who or what was the unifying force behind them? More speculative theories reach beyond archaeology into the realm of mystery. Some fringe researchers suggest that the sunken plazas were not simply ceremonial, but served a more technical function. Could they have been astronomical observatories designed to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars? From the edge of Sacsayhuamán, one wonders, did certain celestial alignments mark the times when rituals were performed? Others go further still, speculating that such structures might have been part of an ancient global tradition, an interconnected system of knowledge that somehow linked early civilizations from South America to Mesopotamia, from the Nile to the Indus. And then there is the question of why the plaza was sunken at all. Why descend into the earth to conduct ceremonies when so many other cultures built upwards toward the sky? Was this a symbolic gesture of humility, an acknowledgement of humanity's place beneath the gods? Or does it hint at something more enigmatic, perhaps a belief in hidden powers beneath the ground, or even memories of an older catastrophe that made people fear what came from above? Standing in the plaza today, with its walls weathered by thousands of years of sun and wind, these questions remain unanswered. The silence is profound, as though the voices of those who once filled this space with prayers and songs have been swallowed by time itself. Archaeologists continue to unearth fragments, pottery shards, carved stones, traces of dwellings, but the full meaning of Sacsayhuamán slips away, just beyond reach. What is most striking is how a site so ancient could remain so little known. Unlike Machu Picchu or the Great Pyramids of Egypt, Sacsayhuamán does not dominate travel guides or appear in grand narratives of world history. And yet, here is a place older than most of the wonders we celebrate, a place that hints at the dawn of organized civilization in the Americas. How many more such sites lie buried beneath the sands and valleys of Peru, waiting to rewrite the story of human beginnings? The sunken plaza of Sacsayhuamán invites us to reflect not only on the ingenuity of its builders, but also on the limits of our own understanding. For every theory, ritual center, astronomical observatory, or fragment of a forgotten global culture, there is a deeper silence that lingers. Perhaps the real mystery lies not in what we can prove, but in what continues to elude us. As the desert winds sweep through the Casma Valley, carrying whispers across the ancient stones, one cannot help but wonder, what did the people of Sacsayhuamán know that we have forgotten? And if their secrets remain buried beneath the earth, how much of our shared human story still waits to be uncovered? Beneath the endless sweep of the Pacific Ocean, on one of the most remote inhabited islands in the world, stand silent guardians carved from stone. Rapa Nui, known to most as Easter Island, is more than 2,000 miles away from the nearest continental shore, isolated by the great expanse of water that surrounds it. Here, scattered across volcanic slopes and windswept plains, rise the colossal figures known as moai. Towering in solemn rows, their stone faces gaze toward the horizon or inland toward the villages they once protected. But behind these imposing statues lies another, perhaps even greater mystery: their platforms, the ahu, immense stone constructions that appear as impossible as the statues themselves. The moai may steal the eye, but it is the platforms that give them their place of power. Some of these ahu stretch more than 300 feet in length, built from stones so carefully fitted together that even after centuries of exposure to wind, rain, and salt air, they remain intact. Enormous slabs of basalt, weighing several tons each, form retaining walls that are as precise as anything found in the monumental architecture of Egypt or Mesopotamia. Some blocks are so smoothly aligned that one could pass a finger along the seams without detecting a gap. And yet these platforms were constructed on an island with limited resources by a society that lacked metal tools, draft animals, or even the wheel. Archaeologists estimate that the earliest AHU may date to around 1100 AD, though some traditions suggest a deeper antiquity. Each was more than a foundation. They were ceremonial centers, sacred spaces where rituals were carried out, where ancestors were honored, and where the boundaries between the living and the spiritual world blurred. Human remains were sometimes interred within the Ahu, binding the presence of the dead with the protective watch of the Moai above. The platforms, then, were not merely engineering feats, but bridges between realms. Still, questions arise. How did a small, isolated population move and fit these massive stones into place? Some researchers propose the use of simple levers, ropes, and ramps. Others suggest that the stones were rolled on logs, though this theory has been challenged. Rapa Nui's forests had largely disappeared by the time Europeans arrived, and scholars debate whether the resources needed for such an undertaking ever existed in abundance. Could the stones have been walked into position, tilted back and forth using ropes, in the same way that some theorize the statues themselves were moved? The platforms remain stubbornly silent, offering no clear answers. What is perhaps most striking is the resemblance between these Ahu and structures found thousands of miles away. The precision of their masonry has drawn comparisons to the Great Walls of Cusco in Peru, or even the megalithic constructions of Tiwanaku in Bolivia. Could there have been ancient contact between these distant cultures, or is the similarity a coincidence born from human ingenuity facing similar challenges? The mainstream view holds to independent invention, yet the question lingers. Why does the same style of seamless stonework appear across such vast distances? As with so many ancient mysteries, speculation reaches further still. Some fringe theories suggest that the platforms were not merely ceremonial, but part of a larger system of energy or power. Were the Moai, with their imposing gazes, meant to focus spiritual forces harnessed by the Ahu beneath them? Could these structures have served as astronomical markers, aligning with celestial events just as other ancient monuments across the world seem to do? Or do they conceal something even more enigmatic, knowledge or traditions lost to time, carried across the seas in ways we can no longer imagine? The story of Rapa Nui is also one of tragedy and endurance. By the time European ships arrived in the 18th century, the island's society had undergone collapse, its population reduced, its resources depleted, and its once proud monuments toppled. Oral traditions tell of conflict, of rival clans battling over the sacred symbols of power that the Ahu supported. Were these platforms abandoned because their meaning was lost, or because the society that built them could no longer sustain their upkeep? And if so, how did the knowledge of their construction vanish so completely, leaving us only with the finished stones but not the method? Walking among the platforms today, one feels a weight beyond their physical mass. Each Ahu carries the memory of generations, of hands that cut and shaped stone, of ceremonies performed beneath the open sky, of voices that have long since fallen silent. They remind us that the Moai do not stand alone. Their power was always rooted in the earth beneath them, in the careful alignment of stone upon stone that turned raw rock into a monument of faith. Yet, for all we know, much remains elusive. Were the platforms simply the culmination of human determination, the ingenuity of a people making the most of what they had? Or do they hint at a forgotten chapter of human history, one where distant cultures may have been connected in ways our textbooks do not yet account for? Could the Ahu conceal, beneath their stones, stories still untold, clues buried in the soil that might one day reveal how these immense structures came to be? As the waves crash against Rapa Nui's rocky shores and the winds sweep across its lonely plains, the Ahu remain steadfast, as if guarding their secrets. They stand as reminders not only of what humanity can achieve, but of how much we have yet to understand. Perhaps, hidden within the silent stones of these platforms, lies a story still waiting to be uncovered. A story that could reshape how we see the past, and perhaps how we see ourselves. Would you like me to also prepare smooth transition sentences that explicitly connect this section to both the previous, Sechin Bajo Sunken Plaza, and the next mystery, so your 3-hour script flows without breaks?